DS Deogracia Sabeliano, Deputy Majority Leader Cristal Bagatsing, Deputy Majority Leader Lianda Bolilla, Deputy Minority Leader Shari Antan, Vice Chairperson Lorna Bandigan, Vice Chairperson Juni Kua, Vice Chairperson Luisa Cuaresma, Vice Chairperson Greg Gasataya, Vice Chair Bingo Matugas, Vice Chair Manuel Sagarbaria, Vice Chairperson Jose Pingping Tejada, and Vice Chair Juliet Uy. We would like also to acknowledge, the committee would like to acknowledge the resource persons who responded to the invitation of the chairman of the Committee on Appropriations to brief the members of the committee as well as the members of the House in their proposed budget. From the Department of Tourism who are present now at Nograles, please raise your hand when your name is acknowledged for the record. Yusek Benito Bengson, Undersecretary for Tourism Development. COO Pocholo Joselito Paragas from Chiesa. Engineer Nestor Domalanta from Chiesa. Engineer Amilita Caganda. And Ms. Madeline Crisha Buwan. And via Zoom, Mr. Chairman, we are also joined by, may we request those who are in Zoom to acknowledge our attendance by unmuting your mic. We have Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat. Secretary, please unmute your mic.
Present.
Yusek Edwin Enrile.
Good morning, sir. Present.
Yusek Arturo Boncato.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Present.
From Tourism Promotions Board, CEO Maria Antoinette Velasco Aliones.
Gandang umaga po, present.
From Intramuros Administration, Attorney Guillier Asido, Administrator.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Present.
Dayong Filipino Foundation, Attorney Lucille Karen Malilong Isberto.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Present.
National Parks Development Committee, Ed Cecil Lorenzo Romero.
Good morning. Present.
Philippine Retirement Authority, Attorney Bienvenido Chi.
Good morning, Chair. Present.
From the Duty Free Philippines, COO Vicente Pelayo Angala.
Good morning, sir. Present.
And from the Philippine Commission on Sports Scuba Diving, Maria Rowena Sorioso.
Good morning, sir. Present.
And Mr. Chairman, all the regional directors of the Department of Tourism are also via Zoom. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, we are also in receipt. The committee is also in receipt of the letter from Secretary Berna stating health as a reason for not being physically present at this meeting. Attached with her letter is her medical certificate issued by St. Luke's Health Institute, Global City. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Comsec. Thank you, dear members. Thank you to the DOT family for being here. Sec Berna, we know that you did have a health scare last year and that you are in fact immunocompromised. And we understand, and the leadership of the House and the House members fully understand that you cannot be physically present due to the high risks. To my fellow members that will be asking questions later, just to be considerate of each other, I will ask that if there are any detailed numbers that you're requesting, please private message so that it can be prepared on hand. I would prepared beforehand. We'd like to remind you that the departments are our guests. This is not a deposition, and definitely we are not going to grill them. No, we're here to hear their presentation, which is the presentation of the President's budget. We have the 3-minute rule, and we will be beginning with the minority, and then member of the minority, and alternating with members of the majority. Please be considerate of the fellow members. If you need an extension, you may ask, but of course, that will be subject to how things are flowing at that point in time. With that, I'd like to welcome Secretary Puyat and to begin the brief presentation of the Department of Tourism.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Yes, we were asked to make it to 1 minute, so we will give a quick summary. Good morning, esteemed members of the House of Representatives. On behalf of all the officials and staff of the Department of Tourism, we would like to express our gratitude for your continuous support to the department's plans and programs. The support of Congress for tourism cannot be overemphasized, as we always look up to both houses for support to our budget and, more importantly, to policies that will further develop opportunities in our sector and help address issues affecting tourism, which is undoubtedly one of the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. We are also pleased to inform that the DOT is on track in delivering its plans and programs for the first half of the year. You can see on the screen the physical and financial performance for the first semester of 2020 in accordance with our 4 programs under the program expenditure classification. Nonetheless, we have endeavored to quickly adapt to the new normal and to work within the many restrictions on travel and tourism. We have implemented activities that mostly utilize virtual platforms. Thus, as of August 31st, we have pushed our utilization rate to 50%. Most of our major activities have been rescheduled to the last quarter of 2020. Hence, we expect to be able to fully utilize our remaining budget for fiscal year 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, we respectfully propose a total budget of 3,520,679 million budget for fiscal year 2021 to enable us to first ensure response and timely formulation of policies in support of safe and fun tourism, cultivate convergence to develop and promote sustainable tourism, enhance capacity among tourism workers to ensure employability and productivity. The Intramuros administration is proposing a total budget of 90.3 million. The National Parks Development Committee, on the other hand, will continue to discharge its mandate of developing, preserving, and managing the Rizal and Paco Park in Manila and other parks that may be assigned to it. In pursuit of this mandate, the NPDC is proposing a 230.23 million budget to cover its operations. Honorable members of this committee, the NPDC as well as the Intramuros administration prepared presentations if you wish to see the details of their proposal. In sum, the Department of Tourism, composed of DOT OSEC, Intramuros administration, National Parks Development Committee, is proposing a budget of 3.8 billion pesos. 91.6% or 3.52 billion pesos of the total proposed budget is earmarked for the DOT OSEC, while 2.4% and 6% will be allocated for IA and NPDC respectively. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Before we go directly to the interpellation, given the speaker's innovation, where we have some people participation, some questions were submitted by members of the academe, and I would like to request the Honorable Faustino Ino D to read some of the questions that hopefully the good secretary can answer for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, my dear colleagues, and of course, good morning to our good secretary. Hope you are well and safe. Let me begin po by starting with our first question. Since you have been appointed as Secretary of the Department of Tourism in 2018, how many underdeveloped tourist destinations have you visited? And what are the top 3 common problems which you have observed in these areas? Alam naman po namin, ma'am, you've really been trying to reach all these areas and really try to see the hidden gems of the country. So,
actually, I've been to almost, the number 1 would be Boracay, because we had to rehabilitate Boracay. So the problem there was basically environmental compliance, but of course it's already environmentally compliant. That's why it was opened last October 2018. Then of course we would be where the top tourist destinations where tourists go would be Cebu, Bohol, in Luzon, of course, Isabela, Aurora, Car, Baguio. I think I've been, Mr. Chair, I think I've been to, I think all tourist destinations except for Siquijor. We were supposed to go, but then COVID hit us. But I think I've been to almost all the top tourist destinations, and even those that are about to emerging also potential. Yes.
Just a follow-up question,
Yes.
po, Mr. Chair. With regards to the underdeveloped or up-and-coming
Yes.
tourist destinations, what are the common problems which I've observed in these areas, po?
Mostly would be the well, first there's no tourism development plan. So that's what we were planning to do. We were having tourism development plan because based on the tourism development plan, you would know what would be the priorities of that particular tourist destination. And we were hoping that it would be under TIEZA because that's under TIEZA, the tourism development plan. Number two would be access. So the airport. So we were also hoping with TIEZA, we would be able to help the different airports, especially with night rating. Number three would be tourism development plan, etc. Promotions, tourism development, the promotion of products, and which we are on. What we're doing now is because of COVID, we are looking at each and every tourist destination, or not even the main tourist destination, to look at possible tourism products that can be developed in light of COVID.
Mr. Chair, thank you po, Madam Secretary. Mr. Chair, just a follow-up question po, since the good secretary has already touched on the National Tourism Development Plan. Because the NTDP po has identified the underdeveloped state of transport infrastructure, tourism facilities as among the most urgent concerns of the tourism industry in both the national and regional context. So other weaknesses involving the industry, which the NTDP seeks to address, are the following. Some of them are inconsistent standards in tourism facilities and services, low awareness in the country's tourism products and destinations. You've said we already have a plan for this. And also, so I just, this representation just want to ask is, what has the DOT accomplished to address these concerns in the past years? And again, what are the future, or what are your future plans?
Okay. We could, we were supposed to present that. We were supposed to, for the specific regions, we were supposed to present the accomplishment 2019. Would you want me to say it, Mr. Speaker? The accomplishments for 2019 or specific?
Yes po, ma'am. If just a quick, just a brief, ano lang naman po, summary. If you.
Okay. We would know. Maybe we could talk about the accomplishments for the 2019. Philippine tourism was on upward climb, and then we recorded more than 8.26 million international visitor arrivals, which was a 15.24% increase from the previous year. Domestic tourism performance was at 110 million trips taken by Filipinos that year, which was an 11.26% increase from the previous year. If you combine domestic and international tourism, we had 2.48 trillion, amounting to 12.7% of the gross domestic product, which was a 10.8 increase from the previous year. Now, tourism, we employed 5.7 million in 2019, which was 6.5% higher than the previous years. We had a lot of agreements with all the other nations, but I think what would be more, would you want to, or what we're doing now for COVID, Mr. Speaker?
Actually, that would be
okay, sure.
Question lang din po. What are, since we're the tourism sector is one of the hardest hit by this pandemic. What is the plan of the good secretary with regards to this?
Okay. Can we also flash? We also have a presentation on that. Maybe we could flash it also para it's more visual. Asik Howie. Okay, the pandemic has hampered, if not halted, the implementation of many of our activities and projects, which were scheduled from March to May, a period considered a peak season for tourism. Nevertheless, we have endeavored to quickly adapt to the new normal and to work within the many restrictions on travel and tourism. We have implemented activities, as I've said, and we have pushed our utilization to 50%. Most of our major activities have been rescheduled to the last quarter of 2020. One such activity is the hosting of the Philippine Travel Exchange, or FITEX 2020 Hybrid Edition, combining virtual and physical activities with B2B appointments conducted virtually, while social events and entertainment hosted in Panglao, Bohol. We will be there September, well, at least the local sellers will be there September 2020 will be broadcasted live to all our buyers all over the world. The FITEX is now on its 19th year. It is the largest government organized travel trade event with 124 international buyers from 33 countries and 163 seller countries. We would also like to highlight that aside from Bohol, many of our beautiful islands are gradually reopening to local tourists provided they test negative for COVID. One prime example is in El Nido, Palawan. To provide the framework for the DOT's response, recoil, and recovery measures that address the COVID-19 pandemic, the DOT led the formulation of the Tourism Response and Recovery Plan early March this year. We conducted this together with the Tourism Congress of the Philippines and with the World Bank. When the pandemic hit March with the clearance from the IATF, the DOT together with the Tourism Promotions Board staged 29 sweeper flights across various regions in the country. Because of the lockdown in all over the country, most of our tourists were stranded in the different islands. That's why we had to stage 29 sweeper flights, particularly regions 4B, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, and 13. We flew approximately 3,600 stranded tourists. We have provided assistance to approximately 40,000 tourists, 30,000 of whom are foreign tourists, while the rest are domestic tourists. The DOT distributed 22,715 tourist care kits, as well as 1,134 tourism care vouchers, which were spent by recipients for their food and accommodation. Rescue missions were likewise fielded by providing land or sea transport and constantly checking and monitoring the situation of our tourists. In addition, the DOT activated its online response team and hotline to answer queries from tourists and the general public. As of today, we have addressed more than 17,000 queries. Further to this, the DOT, together with its attached agencies and corporations, allotted the amount of 111,265,745 to respond to the pandemic. We will send an updated report to this honorable body. We have identified accommodation establishments nationwide that can be used as COVID-19 facilities for our OFWs, overseas Filipinos, seafarers, locally stranded tourists, health workers, BPOs, and other frontline related workers. In NCR alone, we have 400 accommodation facilities with 53,622 rooms. Luzon, 117 accommodations with 818 rooms. Visayas, 97 with 422 rooms. Mindanao, 65 with 1,802 rooms. During the community quarantine, accommodation establishments that intend to open and operate must first be accredited and must secure a certificate of authority to operate from the DOT. As of August 31, 2020, a total of 5,429 accommodation establishments were issued certificates of authority to operate. This is according to the IATF that they all pass the health and safety protocols. This is equivalent to 53% of the total number of accreditable accommodation enterprises. To ensure the safety of our tourism workforce as well as tourists, the department issued health and safety guidelines in the operations of tourism-related enterprises, which the guidelines are health and safety anchored toward the new norms, mandatory use of protective gear for staff and guests, body temperature checks for staff and guests, increased frequency of deep cleaning and sanitation, availability of sanitation and hygiene kits for staff and guests, limited capacity in guest rooms, MICE venues, elevators and transport, physical distancing and installation of barriers or markers, promoting physical distancing, limited food service, contactless transaction using digital technology, staff training on health and emergency protocols, and provision of integrated health plans, contactless greetings such as the practice of a Filipino brand of service, which is the Mabuhay gesture. The administrative orders and memorandum circulars cover hotel and accommodation establishments. They also cover MICE facilities, tourist land transport, restaurants, and island and beach destinations. These guidelines will help tourism entities meet the minimum health protocols when they start opening their facilities. In the same light, online capacity building initiatives have been continuously administered by the DOT to local tourism enterprises and frontliners. This is in line with the Tourism Response and Recovery Plan goals, which is secured livelihood, adequate social services, and sustained business operations, with the end in view of gradually reopening tourism domestically, then internationally. From April to August of 2020, tourism training modules on utilizing ECQ for tourism enterprises, Filipino brand of service under the new normal, ASEAN Tourism Toolbox, digital tourism, and tourism innovation entrepreneurship, among others, were provided through 56 virtual training programs. These were attended by over 10,000 online participants and have reached more than 500,000 online engagements. We believe that these initiatives will support our stakeholders in sustaining their businesses and livelihood and will equip them towards welcoming our domestic tourists in the near future. Honorable members of the House, the pandemic has indeed disrupted our normal core of business, but it has also highlighted the Filipino spirit of resiliency. We also show that in spite of so many difficulties, we are able to deliver to the best of our abilities what are required from us in order to assist and provide services to our stakeholders. So we have our tourism has the strategic thrust, which is to ensure responsive and timely formulation of policies in support of safe and fun tourism, cultivate convergence to develop and promote sustainable domestic tourism, enhance capacity among tourism workers to ensure employability and productivity. Ensuring responsive and timely formulation of policies in support of safe and fun tourism entails inclusive and participatory policy formulation in partnership with stakeholders and the standards and protocol setting with global best practice benchmarks. Under the inclusive and participatory policy formulation in partnership with the stakeholders, we will undertake the updating of the National Tourism Development Plan of 2016 to 2022. We will continue to develop and enforce tourism standards and regulations that reflect and are at par with global best practices. So, as I've mentioned, we already have the TRRP, and it composes of 6 thematic outcomes, which are first, secured livelihood and adequate social services, sustained business operations, enhanced marketing and product development. Fourth is appropriate infrastructure. Fifth, timely and efficient institutional support. And sixth, effective strategic communications. The TRRP is the government's master plan for the industries to cover over the next 2 or 3 years. Now, the National Tourism Development Plan implementation has taken great strides in the development of our tourism industry and is pivotal in breaching our target of 8.2 million visitor arrivals. However, because of the COVID-19, the Philippine tourism will continue to adopt the promotion of sustainable development and inclusive growth as envisioned, but with the integration of new programs identified in our Tourism Response and Recovery Plan. So to give flesh to these strategies, we are implementing a strategic domestic tourism program and aligning our branding campaign to support domestic tourism. As the tourism industry suffers the unprecedented impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, tourism officials and authorities continue to recalibrate targets and prepare accordingly based on various forecasts. A United Nations World Tourism Organization or UNWT report points to a foreseeable decline in arrivals for the year 2020, depending on the containment measures implemented by the respective countries and the duration of travel restrictions and shutdown of borders. The UNWTO modeled three scenarios: 58% if borders are opened in July, 70% if opened in September, and 78% if opened in December. Under these scenarios, the impact of the loss of demand of international travel this year could translate into a loss of 850 million to 1.1 billion international tourists. For the second scenario, a loss of 910 billion. And for the third scenario, 100 to 120 million direct tourism jobs. The UNWTO has yet to release any report on projected global arrivals for 2021. Now, the emphasis on domestic tourism is shared by our ASEAN neighbors. But let's go forward to we will be giving importance to domestic tourism, but based on the 2019 levels, out of the 12.7% of the GDP, domestic tourism expenditure amounted to 3.14 trillion pesos, which was 10.4% from the previous year. This is 10.8% of the 12.7% contribution to tourism. Now, we also had a Philippine travel survey, and it shows that 77% of the respondents are willing to travel even in the absence of a proven vaccine. 48% of this number says that they will travel within 6 months from the lifting of travel restrictions. The data will show that domestic tourists are real heroes of our industry, and I know that we can count on their support. Meanwhile, in the same survey undertaken by the DOT, which was with the AIM, key insights were considered in the crafting of the 2021 tourism program. With the closure of international borders, domestic leisure travel will lead tourism recovery. Understandably, with the expected reduction of the income of travelers, the corresponding reduction in travel budget is also anticipated. However, interestingly, travel budgets are still being allocated, a sure sign that Filipinos will resume traveling as soon as conditions improve and destinations reopen. Health and safety is now a primary concern. Thus, health and safety protocols are highly expected from travel establishments, and I'm happy to say that the health and safety protocols have already been given last June. That's why we've already been issuing, even if the tourist destinations do not accept travel outside their province. Smaller group travel will be preferred with more customized travel experience, with the preference for reduced contact. Outdoor or private activities inspire the greatest sense of safety for travelers. Beach holidays, road trips, and hotel stays are top picks once restrictions are lifted. Out of the 10 tourism products we have identified, 7 tourism products that we will focus on developing in light of the new normal, which is nature-based tourism, cultural tourism, farm tourism, education tourism, sun and beach tourism, health and wellness tourism, and dive and marine sports tourism. As people slowly gain confidence to travel, respondents across the different regions showed a preference to initially travel to destinations closer to home. We can expect that as travelers gain confidence, they will then venture further away from their areas. Domestic travel corridors and bubbles are already being explored. In fact, this September 22, we will be having the Reach to Reef travel corridor between Baguio and Region 1. The domestic tourism strategy is still anchored on the National Tourism Development Plan that calls for a participatory action plan using the bottoms-up approach. This strategy will be complemented by a triage approach which places value on health, safety, readiness, and a capability building program for the local government units and the private stakeholders. Consistent with this bottoms-up approach, the regional office of the departments have done an exercise that called for the identification of regional circuits. This coming days is still a work in progress, but I've said we've already identified the one from Baguio to Region 1. Of course, this is because the governors of Region 1 and Mayor Magalong have already agreed. Now, examples of its circuits are as follows. NCR with its various hubs, especially when NCR is already under a GCQ. North Luzon that covers regions 1, 2, 3, and hopefully soon CAR. In this cluster, an advanced stage of preparations and development is in the, as I've said, ridge to reef. And with regard to Baguio and all the provinces that you see, the DOT through the TPB provided an online registration system called the Visita. So that's what we gave for free to all the provinces and of course, Mayor Magalong. We will also have the Central Luzon cluster, the Southern Luzon cluster of Calabarzon, Bicol, and Mimaropa, the circuit of Western, Central, and Eastern Visayas is a work in progress, and the Mindanao Tourism Circuit will be one of the most extensive areas that will be developed, as well as its extensive resources and diverse product offerings. The domestic tourism strategy has three important elements. First, important is the convergence initiative with local tourism officers, stakeholders on local cultural tourism agenda, including capability building, a convergence with the local governments for the regional branding campaigns, and to institutionalize the principles of sustainable tourism. We will ask the DILG to include this as an important criteria under its program. A strategy demands milestones to ensure continuity and progressive implementation. So given this thrust, the DOT has reallocated much of its branding budget for the promotion of domestic travel, the marketing of new and recalibrated tourism products in partnership with our stakeholders, engaging the public on sustainable tourism, important communicating our safety protocols for travel, and a geotourism-based branding of destinations and provinces. The DOT will be allocating 250 million for the marketability of all these tourism circuits all over the country. This will involve both the efficient use of geo-targeted placements and content, utilizing both traditional and digital media to spur travel and generate revenue within these corridors. We will be providing a platform for our stakeholders to effectively sell their products and packages online, partnering with booking aggregators and platforms, co-branding campaigns with relevant and renowned brands. Moreover, with the gradual and granular reopening of these destinations and provinces and key cities, we believe it would be the best time for these places to revisit their branding framework. The DOT is proposing to invest a total of 325 million for the geotourism-based branding in those areas covered by tourism circuits, whether it be by destination or by locality. Geotourism is defined as tourism that sustains or enhances the distinctive geographical character of a place, its environment, heritage, aesthetics, culture, and the well-being of its residents. The budget will cover the creative development of production materials, media coverage, online visibility through hygienic content from reputable travel sources, influencer marketing, and targeted placements. The budget will cover the creative development of all of what was mentioned. The much needed assistance in capacity and identity building for our local government units is part of the DOT's commitment under RA 9593 or the Tourism Act of 2009. One of the key targets for the tourism industry is to generate employment and ensure that our people get better jobs or get their jobs back. With this end in view, we seek to enhance capacity among tourism workers to ensure employability and productivity with aligning tourism recovery with human capital development programs and retooling stakeholders in support of entrepreneurship. To this end, the Department of Tourism, through the Office of Industry Manpower Development and the regional offices, will make a pivot in the deliver of its human capital development programs and capability building activities to help affected tourism businesses and workers get on their feet as tourist destinations nationwide prepare for their reopening. Trainings will innovate and be responsive to the needs of the various businesses and workers in the tourism value chain. Priority will be given to the building the capacities of tourism MSMEs, community-based tourism organizations present in destinations, attractions, workers in the tourism informal sectors, and other displaced tourism workers. With this in mind, there are 5 major training programs. First, the Restart Up for MSMEs, Forward Tourism Program, which is training and assistance for community-based tourism organizations, the Magandang Buhay sa Turismo Program, the training and assistance for the informal sector. Fourth is retooling tourism professionals for the future, and the Filipino brand of service excellence. In summary, the DOT OSEC is proposing a total budget for what was mentioned to ensure responsive and timely formulation of policies in support of safe and fun tourism, cultivate convergence to develop and promote sustainable tourism, and enhance capacity among tourism workers. The IA can be discussed by Admin Gillier, and also for the NPDC can be discussed by Cecil Lorenzana Romero. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Congressman D. We have 23 representatives, duly elected representatives that would like to ask questions. So I would just like, so I'd have to cut the People's Initiative portion. No? This is a congressional meeting. And to our IT department in the future, I request that the questions that have been selected, please credit the people that actually mailed in the questions or posted the questions so we can give credit where credit is due. And in the future, please give us the name of the institution they're from, or at least the city or municipality in which they reside. Okay, we will continue. We would like to recognize on the part of the minority, the Honorable Minority Leader, Bienvenido Abante. Yeah. In the meantime, while we're waiting for the Honorable Abante, there's a manifestation to be made by the Honorable Inodi.
Just a short manifestation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I just this representation would just like to commend the good work of our good Secretary of the Department of Tourism, and we commend you for all the work you've been doing in this time of this pandemic. And of course, we commend the innovative ideas that you have in helping our tourism industry revive, or helping to revive our tourism industry. Rest assured, you have the full support of this representation, ma'am. Thank you very much, and stay safe always. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Thank you, Congressman.
Is the Honorable Abante available? Comsec? Then we'll still continue with the minority. Is the Honorable Ariel Kabatbat available or ready? Is the Honorable Representative Shari Antan on deck?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, SEC. My question will be, I believe there's a recovery plan of DOT, especially this time of pandemic. I would like to ask what support can DOT give to our marginalized community-based service providers? And is there a provision in the recovery plan for support or assistance to people's organization who are managing the tours of the tourism sites?
Mm. Who wants to discuss the TRRP in detail?
Yusik Tengson, would you like to answer that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For the tourism response and recovery plan, we have put emphasis in helping tourism enterprises recover and also to bring back employment to the displaced workers. So let me start first with the assistance that is being given to the tourism enterprises, particularly the micro and small, medium enterprises, because this is really the focus of the recovery plan. Through the Small Business Corporation of the Department of Trade and Industry, we have allocated approximately 6 billion pesos, which will go to working capital loans to the different enterprises that have been affected by the pandemic. So we're now finalizing the guidelines with the SB Corp with respect to the ceiling per enterprise category, as well as the other terms and conditions with respect to the grace period, repayment period, and the service fee. With respect to the workers, under the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, we have also set aside approximately 3 billion pesos to help displaced workers under the Cash for Work program. And then lastly, also to help the community guides, there is an allocation of approximately 100 million pesos to provide assistance to community and regional tour guides. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask if we can have the copy of the requirements and whatever documents that we need. Kasi nagtatanong na ho yung mga people's organization namin kung how they can avail it. So, and who's the contact person or the focal person we can coordinate with?
Rep Tan, you can take it from my office. I will provide it for you. Secretariat, you're so directed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Chair, my second question will be, the province of Samar is already finished with the province-wide cultural mapping with the help of the UST team. Right now, we are having the cultural food mapping. And I believe this good secretary is so focused on the farm tourism and agritourism. I would like to ask if DOT can fund for the culinary book after we will be finished with if we have the result of the culinary mapping, would it be okay if the DOT can fund for the culinary book together with the trainings and promotions of the culinary tour in the province of Samar, since the book is focuses on heritage recipes, people or the family who are cooking, and it's the story behind it. This means that through the Secret Kitchens of Samar, kasi yun yung program ho na hinahawakan namin ngayon, the culture, the tradition, and heritage dun sa Samar po will be touched by this project on top of the yung sa tulong natin sa mga SMEs na sila din yung magbe-benefit.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Madam Congresswoman, is it possible if you could give us the proposal? And we
Yes
can
po,
discuss
I
it
would
with your
be glad
group? Yes, please.
to
Thank
give
you.
it.
Thank you,
Malaking
ma'am.
tulong ho to SEC sa amin. And the last question will be addressed to Tiesa. I would like to check kasi right now ongoing ho yung lighting ng San Juanico Bridge. And we all know from the fact that if we have the light dun sa San Juanico Bridge, pagdating ng time na magiging normal na lahat, magi-influx yung mga turista, kailangan ho talaga ng boardwalk kasi dun kikita yung mga people's organization and the community. So I believe the last time before pandemic, approved na ho ng board yung fund intended for the boardwalk in the municipality of Santa Rita, malapit ho sa San Juanico Bridge. Ngayon ho ay medyo naiintindihan naman ho namin na nagamit yung funds to address the COVID-19, I would like to ask, is it possible if by next year mapopondohan ho natin yung nakaltas or na hindi natuloy na project for the boardwalk? Yun ho, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the question.
Mr. Paragas, how do you foresee the future?
Mr. Chair, what the TIESA actually did was create already a roll call or a rollout program for all of the suspended projects. Now, in terms of the boardwalk, it is currently suspended now due to the Bayanihan Act. And what we're doing right now is once we get the influx of travel tax again and once tourism again increases outbound wise, naka-schedule na po siya. As to the projection for tourism, as discussed a while ago by SEC and of course the other agencies outside of the country, based on travel tax or travel, it will start to recover within 2021, 22, 23, but normalcy is projected at 2024. So right now, sir, I don't want to commit yet, but we know right now that yun ang una hong matutuloy. The moment we get already the projects that travel tax increases, the suspended projects will automatically roll over for ongoing, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, CEO Paragas. I fully understand. Nag-ano lang ho kami kung at least makikita namin sa timeline din namin dito sa probinsya when we do the promotion. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Sec. Berna and CEO Paragas. Thank you so much. We will just submit the proposal. Good morning.
Yes. Thank you, Congresswoman Tan. I would now like to recognize the Honorable Vice Chairman of the Committee, Teddy Haresco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maraming salamat po. Welcome to the DOT family, particularly Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat. And I guess the Secretary, Mr. Chairman, is one of the most beautiful cabinet secretaries and ministers in the democratic world. And Secretary Berna, Mr. Chairman, was a calming hand during the closure of Boracay in behalf of my cousin, the Governor Joven Miraflores, and the elected officials of West Aklan, where Boracay is nestled. Maraming salamat to the Secretary and the DOT family. Welcome din po sa akin inaanak na si Pocholo. Welcome. I have several questions, Madam Mr. Chair. Number one po, sabi ni Secretary na CHESA is supposed to have done the National Tourism Development Plan. Is that correct?
Sorry. The regional master planning, Mr. Chair, what we had in mind was to have a regional development master plan for the whole of the Philippines. And this was actually board approved already, kasama na po dun yung Boracay and the regions around it. It was only suspended due to the contribution to the COVID, sir.
For the COVID?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, I would like to ask DOT if you have a tourism local infrastructure plan or strategy.
Sir, what we have, Mr. Chair, is the menu board for all of the projects that we are working on, aligned with the NTDP, sir. So what we do is we provide the menu board. We have a menu board available showing kung ano yung mga possible projects under the local areas, from micro to macro. These are from tourist assistance centers to accessibility. We have the project dreams that we call it. It's basically destination, restoration, eco, agri, and of course yung security po, which is very crucial po ngayon.
Is CHESA the one implementing the tourism infrastructure plan?
Yes, sir. What we have right now is for infrastructure. Kami ho ang infrastructure arm ng DOT. So what we do is from the travel tax and all of the income that we get, kami ho yung nag-layout ng mga infrastructure requirements po.
So Mr. Chair, the 10 billion of trip in the Bayanihan 2 and the 1 billion will be implemented by you or DPWH?
Okay. For the trip ho, actually, TIESA from Bayanihan to does not have any funding. It is straight to the different agencies. Like I think for the 1 billion sa DPWH po yun. So it goes
Yun,
to the
10 billion?
Ay sir, 1 billion po.
1 billion sa DPWH?
Yes sir. Yes. Sir.
Yes, I'm asking this, Mr. Chair, because according to economists around the world, it will take the tourism industry around the world about 18 months to get back. And during that time, especially in my district, West Aklan, tinamaan po kami ng parang Yolanda, December 25, tapos tinamaan kami ng COVID. And we are a single economy dependent on tourism. But, Mr. Chair, sa tinatanong ko po kung meron talagang national strategic plan ang Department of Tourism, because as far as I know, in Western Visayas, ay wala po. For example, I have not seen your tourism officers in my district. I rarely see a regional director. In business, Mr. Chair, if we have a very prosperous market, that is where a corporation infuses more resources para balik agad ang pera. Before COVID, we almost reached 59 billion contribution to GDP, Mr. Chair. And within 30 minutes of Boracay, there is, we have a cliff that foreigners dive. It's almost like Acapulco. It's in Buruanga, Aklan. That is undeveloped. We have a white beach in Buruanga, Aklan, where Boracay Sangrila just bought a piece of property, and the infra is undeveloped. We have a cold water springs that is just 30 minutes from Boracay, that is also undeveloped. We have a river rapids as good as Pagsangan Falls, that is undeveloped. If 2.2 billion tourists, Mr. Chair, stay one more day in West Aklan and spend $200, that's 400 million. Immediately, that translates to another 20 billion to GDP. So, that's why I'm asking, meron ba talaga tayong coherent tourism development plan?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, TIESA is the in-house, handles the in-house infrastructure for the Department of Tourism. And the TRIPS, as mentioned, is what falls under an interdepartment convergence program with the DPWH. I believe they will be able to answer your questions better. Can we call on Yusek Bongkato, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just to respond to the question of the Honorable Congressman, for the BP2, there is a 1 billion peso amount dedicated for tourism infrastructure. And we're pleased to share with the body, Mr. Chair, that through the Officer Secretary Puyat and the Office of Secretary Villar of the DPWH, they have agreed in order to really hasten the use of the said funds is to continue continuing roads that have been identified between the periods of 2016 and 2021. The technical working group of both the DOT and the DPWH are currently identifying these roads that would fit the indicators that we have shared, and all of the said amount will be spread equally among all of the regions. So that's an estimated of around 70 million pesos per region, Mr. Chair. So that is the direction we're taking as to rolling out the 1 billion pesos that is allocated for tourism roads under BP2, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I question the strategic policy of DOT. Kasi dito sa Visayan Tourism Circuit, from Boracay, you're supposed to go to Miagao. That's 4 hours away. When I go to Paris, I don't go to Marseille. When I go to Milan, I do not go to Rome. I just stay around the place. So dito po sa inyong Visayan Tourism Circuit, if I was a tourist from Korea, why will I go to a church that's 4 hours away? Why will I go to another church? I am a Chinese, I am a Korean, I am a Japanese. So I would rather stay 30 minutes from where I went to. So maybe, Mr. Chair, the Department of Tourism can adapt what IATF is saying now, granular approach instead of this grand approach na hindi ko naman nakikita, Mr. Chair, sa region. Any coherent and satisfactory regional tourism development plan, I do not see anything related to enhancing the stay of tourists in Boracay, Mr. Chair.
Yusek Art, would you please give us a brief, for the benefit of the members, brief description on the process, the approval process for TRIPSI as it relates to departments, para malinaw lang po sa mga membro natin dahil marami pong tanong talaga tungkol dyan every year.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Of course, the TRIP convergence is one of the longest convergence programs in the government. And when the TRIP was programmed early on, the process was some sort of a bottom-up approach because proposals were collected from the regional level, in fact, down to the municipality level in terms of proposals. And both the departments have put together a regional technical working group that is participated in by our regional offices, both DOT and DPWH. And over the years, we have put together a criteria that would see the value of the such proposals in order for them to graduate as a tourism road. And one of those major fences that we put together would be a community approval, local government approval, and regional government approval. So no proposal from the local government can emerge out of the regional TWG without a regional development council approval, for instance, Mr. Chair. And that is elevated now to the national TWG, where the offices of both secretaries are heavily involved in terms of identifying the roads to be funded. And the roads to be funded are actually dependent now on the budget put together by the national government for DPWH to implement. So that is the process, Mr. Chair, that takes more than half a year every year, because we start from the regional level all the way to the national level, all the way to budgeting season. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I've heard that a long time ago. Sa Malacanang pa ako, I know that EO 231 and 230. Pero what if there is no bottom? What if the regional does not exist or does not work? What if the municipal cannot access to the regional? Ano mangyayari? Katulad namin sa Aklan. What if the regional does not go around the region? So, ayan ang problema namin, Mr. Chair. Meron kaming 7 waterfalls, pristine and undeveloped. That's only 35 minutes from Boracay. We have been asking and asking and asking. Pero what if the bottom-up approach under Executive Order 230 during the President Corazon Aquino, what if that does not exist? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To go on with the proceedings, just to make it quicker, Yusek Art, pwede bang i-follow up yung mga proposal dito of the Honorable, para makuha naman natin yung status ng mga requests of the Honorable?
We can flash a slide with your permission, Mr. Chair, of the current programs of under the office of Congressman Haresco, road projects. If you would allow, we have just one slide to show the existing road projects and those to be funded in 2021, Mr. Chair.
Hindi na,
Should-
Mr. Chair.
Hindi na kailangan. Salamat po.
Hindi na kailangan na just submit to my office. You see, it had to take this committee hearing for them to send me a copy. Mr. Chair, I'm worried about the national. Yung atin pag-recover, tourism contributes 9%. And in fact, the budget of tourism is too small compared to what tourism contributes. But I'm not saying that it is the tourism department that contributes. I'm saying that the blood, sweat, and tears of all the people who invested in tourism, say Boracay. I have several regular meetings with the people, the stakeholders in Boracay. They were not even invited last June 16 for the tourism summit. Mga taga Metro Manila lang po at saka mga taga Bohol ang naimbita. Pero kami sa Boracay, number 3 tourist destination, hindi po kami naimbita. Kami sa Aklan, with the only province with 2 international airports, hindi po kami naimbita. Gusto po sanang sabihin na 3 hotel association, sabi nila, number 1, ayaw po nila humiram sa SB Corporation kasi natatakot po sila humiram sa bangko kasi 18 months pa bago dumating ulit ang turista. Pahingi daw ng tulong para sa kanilang mga empleyado which they have to more or less disengage. Ayun po kailangan nila. Kailangan daw nila ng retraining para pagdating ulit ng turista, preparado sila magsalita ng Inchik, Hapon, Koreano. Ayun po mga kailangan, hindi po kailangan nila na direct assistance to the hotel owners. The hotel owners are billionaires, 100 billionaires. They do not need money. They only need this labor assistance. Ayun po ang sinasabi po nila. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
I concur with the Honorable Haresco, having worked on the Arise Bill, which became very different from the Bayanihan 2, no? But that's something that we can discuss at another time and at another venue. That it is, although it is very important. Would that be all for now? Now, I'd like to recognize the Honorable Gabby Bordado on the part of the minority.
Mr. Chairman, naririnig po ako dyan, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you're recognized, Honorable Bordado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Medyo unstable ang internet namin dito sa lugar. So, walang video, Mr. Chairman.
That is fine. You have your handsome picture on our screen.
Based on the report made by the Honorable Secretary Puyat, the tourism sector contributed 12.7% of the country's total GDP, and the sector share to total employment in the Philippines is 13.5%. But, Mr. Chairman, the department will be receiving a budget 12% lower than its 2020 allocation, Mr. Chairman. What will be the impact of this budget cut-off to the overall performance of the Department of Tourism in 2021?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yes. Oh, yes, our budget is 93.6 million lower, but that was the budget level that was given by the DBM. We hope that it won't, well, I'd like to think that we will still be able to provide what is needed and given by the pandemic. But since that was the budget ceiling given to us by the DBM, we will make do with what we have.
So in other words, you are expecting that the DBM can still upgrade the budget?
We respect because it is COVID now, and then other departments also need. Of course, we'd like to thank Your Honor for recognizing the importance of tourism. It is lower by 93.6 million, but we will make do. We will make do with what we have.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, according to the Department of Tourism Agency budget notes, the National Capital Region corners the bulk of the DOT budget. For 2021, the share of the National Capital Region will further increase to 90.7%. Is this correct, Madam Secretary?
Yes, that is only lodged with the DOT OSEC, but it is actually farmed out to all the different regions.
But considering the figures, the other regions will be receiving less than 1% of the budget.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, that is only lodged with the central office, but then again, it is given to the different regions. That is mostly for branding and even for the training. The training is lodged with the region, but then with the central office, but that is farmed out to the different regions.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, will the lower regional budget allocation be sufficient to support the reopening of tourism in the provinces after the COVID-19 pandemic or after the MGCQ?
Yes. Currently, Your Honor, what we are doing now, we are really trying to help the different local destinations reopen. In the case of Baguio and the different provinces in Region 1, it is the DOT, either through the DOT main office or through the TPB. We've been giving their online digital platform because that was what they've been asking for. And then we've also been asking through the DOH COVID testing centers, because when we were meeting with the other congressmen and all the other LGUs, they said that they will only reopen to tourism if they have a COVID testing lab. So with regard to the COVID testing centers, we have already gave our request to the DOH that it be prioritized so that we could finally restart the different tourism destinations. And then that's this online platform, we will provide it to all the LGUs that want to reopen.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Now, how much of the 2021 budget will go to the allocation for initiatives ensuring the sanitation and disinfection of tourism-related establishments?
I'm not sure about that. We've given already the protocols. This is actually more for the private sector. We've given the health and safety protocols back June. So this is actually already with, this is for the private sector. This is private sector, all the health and safety protocols based on WHO and the DOH. But it's not the DOT that sanitizes the different accommodations. We just give the health and safety protocols. But then, but we are the ones that accredit. So what we do is, what we notice in the latest survey, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, that all the tourists want contactless. That's what we are doing. We are providing also the different establishment a digital app called Safe Pass Express, so that mahal kasi yung digital application. So we are providing that for free to all DOT accredited establishments and restaurants para mas madali yung capacity management and contact tracing. Kami na po nagpo-provide nun for all the establishments that are accredited.
Mr. Chairman, last question. How many tourism-related services and establishments like hotels or transportation services have been converted for the COVID-19 pandemic response?
Already, all the establishments that have accredited are already 50% already, but we are continually engaging them and helping them so that they will have a certificate of authority to operate. But of course, we want, Mr. Chair, na sana lahat, and we will continually help them para they can all, when they eventually decide to reopen for tourism, that they will be allowed to accept guests. But right now, it's 50% based on the applications, and we've all acted on it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, sir.
We'd like to recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Committee on Tourism, the Honorable Representative Sol Aragones.
Magandang tanghali po, Mr. Chair. Kuya Jack, naririnig po ako?
Yes, loud and clear, Consol.
Thank you, Kuya Jack. At magandang tanghali din po sa DOT family sa pangunguna ni Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat. Magandang tanghali po, ma'am. Naniniwala ako na ang isa sa heart and soul ng anumang departamento ay ang communication, ang promo and marketing, lalo na sa panahon ng pandemya, na siya namang ginagawa ng DOT family sa pangunguna ni Secretary Berna. Sa katunayan, gusto ko hong i-commend at i-congratulate ang DOT sa Wake Up in the Philippines na ipinalabas po ninyo. Ito ay isang video ng mind setting na pinapakita natin sa publiko na babalik kami, babalik at babangon ng turismo. Gusto ko rin ho kayong pasalamatan at i-commend sa isa pang video na inilabas ninyo. Nakakakilabot na video ng Araw ng Kalayaan, tribute to our OFW. Congratulations po, Secretary Berna, DOT family, at syempre sa napakagaling niya si Asik Hawi. On that note, Secretary Berna, I would like to ask how much of the promo funds for 2020 have been left unspent, if there is any, and how much budget is allocated for promo and marketing for 2021?
Asik Hawi or Asik Leila?
Thank you, Sec, Mr. Chair, Kong Sol. For 2020, I still have a remaining 500 plus million that will be spent for to aid the reopening of tourism circuits and also for the promotion of safe travels to communicate what our protocols and measures are when traveling. So this is in partnership rin po with the Tourism Promotions Board. And for next year, I have a total of 1.4 billion, 900 plus million of which are focused on promoting domestic travel po.
Thank you very much, Asik Hawi. We both agree that we need to promote domestic tourism in times of pandemic. Sinabi ni Secretary Berna kanina na base sa survey na isinagawa na ang top travel activities ay going to beach, road trips, and staycation. So if I may suggest, Madam Secretary and Asik Hawi, maaari po ba na dahil excited yung mga tao na nag-reopen, totoo yan na dahil tinitingnan nyo na rin sa mga darating na araw, talagang magbabakasyon na ang mga tao at babalik. So maganda yung meron tayong mga promo materials na inihanda sila dito. At the same time, maisuggest ko lang po, maaari po bang maglabas tayo ng bulletin from time to time kung ano na ang mga lugar, mga domestic locations na nagsisimula ng magbukas sa turismo para ma-inform din natin yung public.
Yes, Congresswoman. It's already we have a website, and that's where we put all the updates on what are the tourist destinations that are open.
Okay, thank you, Sec. My last question: there's a budget allocation for trainings. Those covered by these trainings and the budget allocated for these trainings are only the employees of the businesses that have reopened, Or this include the employees of the businesses that have not yet reopened and may longer reopen? In any case, what is the plan and how much is the budget allocation, if any, for all these employees of tourism industry, businesses that no longer have the capacity to resume operations after being closed for several months or half a year?
Congresswoman, it's open to all, whether they have reopened or haven't reopened. In fact, we started last April when there was no tourism at all. But the budget, USEC Art, how much is the budget allocated for that? Naka-mute ka, USEC Art.
Yeah. For this year, Secretary, we've actually put together at least 100 million for training all over the Philippines. And this is unprecedented in the history of the DOT. Because in the past, we just had utilized a small amount. Now it's, as mentioned by the Secretary earlier, it's lodged in the central office, but a more focused approach in training our stakeholders, whether they're employed or not, or just interested to join the tourism industry, is happening on a regional level. So there's an amount that is distributed from regions 1 to 13 every year. And next year, the same direction is being taken. And the new directive from the Secretary was to already make our online learning platform part of the mainstream training program, because she stated that by having an online learning platform, we're able to reach out to more participants at any given time, unlike in the past when we had to contend with face-to-face training, limited venues. But now, because of technology, we're able to reach to every possible participant in their training sessions. Mr. Chair, salamat po.
Thank you, USEC Art. Thank you, Secretary Berna. Maraming salamat sa DOT family. Maraming salamat sa lahat ng effort, pinagsama-samang effort ninyo para patuloy na bumangon at siguradong makakabangon ang turismo ng bansa. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po, Kuya Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sis Sol. I just got a message from the Honorable Stella Kimbo, having some connectivity problems right now. We'll come back to her when she sorted that out. In the meantime, we'd like to recognize the Honorable Franz Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magandang tanghali po sa ating lahat at lalong-lalo na po sa DOT family. So, yung unang tanong ko po, Mr. Chair, about the budget on branding. So, dito lang po yung napansin ko, lumaki po siya ng 83%. So, pwede po bang malaman sa ating kinaukulan kung bakit po ito lumaki at ano po yung difference nito in terms of programs, projects sa 2020 budget po?
Asik Howie, I think ma'am, it's the same, but before it was going to be distributed among the different regions. But now we decided to centralize. We've been discussing, we've been talking to each province, to all the different LGUs. So we are going to be giving it, so kasi iba na po yung branding ngayon, it's about health and safety. So iniisa po namin all the LGUs. And then according to what they need, kung anong branding, doon namin ina-adjust. But Asik Howie or Admin G, if you have any more to add to this.
So meron na po ba kayong plano na written report o plano tungkol dito po?
We have, ma'am, we could submit it to you. We are in the process to talking to all the different LGUs kasi po nagbago yung landscape because of COVID. So, yun, nagbago yung branding. It's more on health and safety. At saka yung mga tourism products, more nagbago kasi mas gusto nila yung mga outdoor, yung less contact. So, we are talking to the different LGUs all over the country para lang we could adjust the branding according to their needs and to the different tourism activities that is for COVID. Kasi nagbago na po yung ano. But you could add Asik Howie or Admin G.
Mr. Chair, Sec Berna. The reason po for that really big increase was because I think it was compared to the current 2020 budget, where majority of it po was given up for the Bayanihan funds.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that
yeah.
is the reason why po na basically the budget next year is almost the same as the budget sana for 2020
Yes.
had the COVID response not happened. Thank you.
Yes.
So ibig sabihin po yung 803,608,000 nire-channel po sa sa COVID.
Binigay po sa COVID po. Bayanihan 1.
Okay. Next, doon naman po tayo Mr. Chair doon sa plano ng ating DOT on the Baro o yung Bayanihan 2. Dito po doon sa meron po you were allotted 4 billion. 1 billion for the tourism infrastructure and another 3 billion for parang ayuda ito no, parang cash for work,
yeah.
okay, and those displaced workers. Meron din pong 100 million for tourist guides. Okay? So nakalagay po dito sa page 20 of the Baro Law, directing DOT to assist critically impacted business. So nakalagay dito sa number 1, provide loan interest rate subsidy from CARES. So yung CARES po, yung program, administer the loans for DOT but subject to guidelines from DOT. Meron na po ba kayong dito? Meron na po kayong plan?
Mr. Chair, may I ask Yusek Bong to reply to that? Kasi, I think that's under Yusek Art. Mr. Chair, may I ask Yusek Art to reply to that?
Sec, I'll reply on the aspect of the assistance to our displaced workers under the 3 billion pesos. The policy that both the DOT and DOLE have taken was to initially prioritize. Of course, to prioritize, I mean DOT accredited enterprises and their employees, and that will be the first phase. And then we also have to look at those applying coming from non-accredited establishments, provided that they are permitted or licensed by the local government units. So that is the initial direction that we are taking, Mr. Chair. And as mentioned by the Secretary earlier, this is not just a release of funds, but it's using a cash for work or cash for training mode, because the intention of both departments is to ensure that apart from the cash that they're getting, they get something more permanent in the process. So that is the policy when it comes to the 3 billion. Similarly, for the 100 million for tour guides, our priority is to help the DOT accredited tour guides, and then next would be LGU permitted tour guides. But we're also expanding this to those who are permitted by local governments without tour guide training, because they have actually extended licenses to members of communities. But our basic requirement there is for them to have training first before they avail of this grant to them. And that system is also approved both by the DOT and DOLE. And I would like to defer to my colleague Yusek Bong Bengzon pertaining to the 6 billion of SB Corps through the Secretary, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, yeah, may we ask permission that Yusek Bong answer regarding SB Corps?
Please, Yusek Bong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Just to provide some updates, we met with SB Corporation just last week, and these are the key agreements. SB Corp agreed already to 0% interest for all tourism enterprises under the CARES program that will be set up specifically for tourism. Number 2, SB Corp a grace period of 1 year and a payment period of 2 years, total term of 4 years. So SB Corp is now coming up with its recomputation for the service fee based on these terms and will inform the Department of Tourism. Likewise, the DOT and the SB Corp have agreed to make it easy for applicants to avail of the loan. So the only requirement from the DOT will be accreditation. There will also be no collateral required from MSMEs, and this is regardless of the loan account. And the only requirement that SB Corp will ask of the loan applicants is to submit a 2 to 3 minute recorded video presentation of the proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. May we ask the DOT to submit the agreement on with the SB Corp?
We will comply, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And last question, Mr. Chair, what is the difference in terms of beneficiary of the two Bayanihan 1 and of the two Bayanihan 1 and 2 as regards to the cash for work and for the aid for our displaced workers? So ano po yung difference nung bibigyan natin? Sila rin po ba ulit or may iba ng set po?
Mr. Chair, yung sa Bayanihan 1, wala talagang naka-allot na tourism. Bale, whoever applied, yun lang. But it is only in Bayanihan 2 that may naka-specifically, it will be for the tourism stakeholders. And with regard to that, sa DOLE, so it is basically who applied, yun ang binigyan nila. Now, with the DOF, SSS, ito yung mga nagbabayad ng, yung may, sa, bumayad sa IR and SSS. But kasi with the 3 billion
IT, please unmute Congressman Veloso.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I congratulate the good secretary for work well done. My first question on Mr. Chair is that it has been admitted by the good secretary that the tourism industry has been worst hit by this COVID-19. And both CNN and BBC tell us that this COVID-19 will stay with us until more or less 2022, unless we have this vaccine that could solve our problem. In the proposed budget, it tells us that first, branding and marketing support for domestic travel is will cost us 915 million. Okay po ito kasi talagang maasahan ng domestic tourism natin. But how about these international marketing promotions which would cost us 360 million, and country brand development which would cost 170 million, when again both CNN and BBC tell us na wala pa tayong maasahang international tourists from both Europe, Korea, and United States. Paano ba mare-reconcile ito, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are actually, of course, tama po yung good congressman na domestic tourism muna tayo ngayon. But then we are looking at travel bubbles or travel corridors. Marami po tayong mga tourist destinations that have international airports. At depende po sa pag okay na po yung mga local residents, like for example, Bohol or even Boracay, they are actually welcome na pwedeng dumiretso doon. We have 12 international airports at pwedeng dumiretso doon yung international tourists. In fact, sa Boracay, nagsimula muna sila sa domestic tourism and they are hoping na kasi Boracay has zero COVID, but they are hoping na kung okay naman daw yung kanilang mga cases, that they can accept directly international tourists via their international airport. So hindi we have kasi travel bubbles or travel corridors na pwedeng dumiretso sa tourist destination.
Yes, but itong problema nga natin, we do not expect, according to BBC and CNN, tourists from Europe and US and the normal and the principal tourists that we expect to come. Ano ang gagawin natin sa 360 million nito for international marketing promotions and 170 million for country brand development? Can you not align this for local tourism in line with, especially rather that kailangan natin ng pera for SAP, mga social services, kasi mandato ng Article 2, Section 4, na obligasyon ng gobyerno na proteksyonan ang tao, at Section 5 ng Article 2 sinasabi obligasyon din ng gobyerno na proteksyonan ang buhay at i-promote ang general welfare ng sambayan ng Pilipino. Paano ba natin ano yan?
The bulk naman po of our budget will still be with domestic promotions, but we still have to continually market the Philippines as safe for foreign tourists, because we have to continually promote that it is safe to travel in the Philippines, because we cannot discount the fact that, of course, we are not sure when travel will resume, but we have to continually market the country that it is safe to travel in the country. Kasi pag hindi pa natin i-promote, para mawawala po yung future. Hindi pa natin malalaman na baka naman hindi pa natin malalaman kung kailan makakapasok, but we are hoping na we continually to market our country, and but this is really for branding, but the bulk of the branding is really for domestic promotion. But I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, if ASIC Howie would like to add.
Thank you, Secretary. Mr. Chair, the retention of some budget for international promotions is, as Secretary mentioned, to maintain our presence even while the pandemic is happening. Other countries po are also doing the same thing, just to improve their brand essence in showing their safety protocols and measures that they're employing for when international travel may resume again. If we do not invest in this po, once international travel does resume, makakalimutan na po tayo ng international market natin. So this is why we need to still maintain our presence internationally. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kakaputol-putol eh. Mr. Chair, hindi ko masyadong ngayon. Sige.
Mr. Chair, parang importante po kasi kailangan po hindi mawala yung branding namin sa international para top of mind pa rin ang Philippines among all our markets. Kasi kung hindi po mawala po tayo sa tingin nila, baka pag magbukas na all the travel restrictions, mapag-iwanan tayo, hindi na po pumunta dito. So we continually, para top of mind pa rin, and we continue to market the country as we follow all health and safety protocols. Kasi hindi po natin alam, baka po soon biglang mag-lift na yung restrictions nila. Kung hindi tayo top of mind sa international travelers, baka hindi na tayong puntahan.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. Pupuntahan ko lang yung pangalawa. Dito sa Visayas Tourism Circuit, I notice siguro mahina ang regional director namin dito or ang regional office. I notice na hindi kasama ang Leyte area, Leyte, Biliran, and Southern Leyte dito sa Visayas Tourism Circuit. When ang dami nating may offer. For example, in my district alone, we have Kalanggaman, we have Duahon, we have Igatangan, we have ang Malapascuan, well, it's still part of Cebu. This is only a few minutes away, 20 minutes away from my town, and also Carnasa. And more importantly, sa Southern Leyte, ito na nga yung pinupunta ng mga anak ko, mga diving, scuba diving points like Padre Burgos, Macrohon, Cuatro Islas, dito sa Didio Island, Misugod Bay tayo. Bakit hindi ito lumalabas sa Visayas Tourism?
Mr. Chair, we will discuss with your office kasi dapat po kasama siya.
Maraming salamat. Last point ko lang, ayaw ko sanang i-discuss ito dito dahil but it gives us the opportunity to solve one big problem ng Department of Tourism, itong sa Kalipayan dance troupe. Kaming lahat mga congressmen sa sa Eastern Visayas ang sumulat noon sa panahon ni Secretary Wanda Teo for a budget. Pumayag naman siya, and then everything was prepared together with the consular offices ng Pilipinas sa US, lahat. Hindi lang natuloy dahil naalis si Wanda Teo at pumalit itong good secretary natin. Ang problema ngayon is kawawa naman itong mga hindi naman ganun kayaman itong mga members ng dance troupe. Ang problema, as I heard, is magsisilbi daw sila, magpe-perform sila elsewhere, but to me that is violative na ngayon sa Article 3 ng Constitution because it takes the form of an involuntary servitude. Gusto ko lang magiyahan sana ang DOT officials nang hindi naman mapasubo sila sa unnecessary cases. Ang BBM daw kinuha yung pera dahil hindi naman ginagastos kasi the shows that were supposed to be performed by this Kalipayan dance troupe, our cultural ambassadors, every time schedule ang performance nila, kinakancel naman. Hindi nga nagpapaalam, last minute nagkakancel. Siguro, mas maganda pag-usapan na lang ito, hindi dito sa budget hearing, but I caution, kaya nakiusap ako sa chairman ng Committee on Appropriations na yung sulat nila ibigay sa iyo in time. Mag-interpret sana ako, but there are a lot of things na ayaw kong pag-usapan dito. Pwede po ba mapag-usapan namin ito in private ni Yusek Bongkato?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through the Secretary. Yes, Mr. Chair, pwede pong set po kami ng meeting sa inyo right away, immediately after this hearing, sir.
Maraming salamat po. Hindi na po ako magse-second round, Mr. Chair. That will be all for the good secretary and the DOT family. Maraming salamat ulit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize your Honorable Minority Leader, Bienvenido Abante.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Again po mga colleagues dito po sa ating committee budget deliberation of DDOT. Magandang tanghali, Madam Secretary, at kay Yusek Bengson at kay UO Paragas, lahat po sa inyo. Magandang hapon po. The 2021 budget for DOT listed 3.4 billion pesos as new appropriations for general administration and support. Support to operations, including locally funded projects, with a total of close to 2.2 billion pesos for various operations relative to tourism policy formulation and planning program, training programs, enforcement, the bulk of which is poured down on market and product development program at 2 billion pesos. Now, given the pandemic issues and the fact that there is no close solution for any vaccine, what can you accomplish with this budget, Madam Secretary, or whoever would like to answer?
Yes. Mr. Chair, based on our survey, 77% of our tourists will still want to travel even in the absence of a vaccine. What we are doing now is we are helping the different local tourist destinations to rebrand that they're safe, it's health, the health and safety protocols are in place so that people also want to still travel all over the country. It's when we with regard to the branding, we were also in charge of the product development. So in light of COVID, there are a lot of tourism products that should be in line with what the tourists want, in line that there's still COVID and there is no proven vaccine. So but I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, can I give the floor to who wants to answer? Admin Giler.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Mr. Chair. With respect po doon sa question regarding the product development, what the department is doing right now po is recalibrating everything po in terms of the pivot towards domestic tourism. So ang ginagawa po namin is that for the past few weeks, we have been in close consultation with the regional offices, and we have also called po yung mga provincial tourism officers and city tourism officers. What we will be doing po is try to identify new tourism products that will be consistent with the new normal. So ang strategic approach po namin basically is that within the next few weeks and prior to 2021, while we are opening some circuits, we are also recalibrating existing products and developing new ones din po. So, but ang mangyayari po dito is that we are really adopting yung bottom-up approach, where what we will be doing is basically to let the local communities, the local governments, make their proposals to us and for them to be consolidated para po mapakita that this is really a community-based and a local government-led approach po in terms of tourism development for domestic tourism, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, do you realize the challenges that your department have? The losses and of revenues due to tourism. Napakalaki po nito, napakalaki. All right, and I sympathize actually with the department on what is happening. Of course, we do not even know when the new normal would be in because right now, even the DOH admitted that we are still far from flattening the curve. You see, we have increasing cases of coronavirus cases. We have increasing deaths, no, and because of that, that actually give nervousness and a lot of fear for tourists to come. Now, how can you develop a market that is at this point in time shut down completely? Mr. Chair.
I think, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, if I may po, I think the main the approach basically is to build trust and confidence po. That is why po we are also aligning the safety and health campaign po with the domestic tourism. Dahil we do realize po the fact na international tourism may come, we don't know kung po talaga, but ang track po talaga is to ensure that we develop the domestic tourism market already. It may be what we are doing right now po sa Northern Luzon. It may be between provinces. It may be between one or two cities. So it will take time, Mr. Chair. Tama po kayo because of the fluidity of the situation. But we will be adopting po a slow but sure approach po in terms of developing the market po. But we will start po with domestic tourism po. Dahil domestic tourism naman po talaga ang backbone of the industry in terms of its contribution to the GDP.
I have a question on domestic tourism later on. Now, all of these questions are not actually to question your knowledge on your expertise on your department, but it is that Congress, Mr. Chair, could be able to help in realizing the kind of budget you ought to have, to be able to help in realizing that our tourism industry will not actually literally go down. But even in this pandemic, we're going to have a vibrant tourism industry. Now, ito pong 3.478 billion under the NEP, no? It's not really your budget, as Bayanihan 2 appropriated 10 billion for tourism industry. 6 billion is allocated for soft loans for tourism MSMEs through the Small Business Guarantee and Finance Corporation of the DTI. In coordination with DOT, 3 billion pesos shall be devoted to assisting displaced and unemployed tourism workers through the DOLE. And the remaining 1 billion will be provided for tourism road infrastructure programs of a DPWH. This is not part of your key performance indicators for 2021, but will augment whatever budget you have for 2021. Tama ho ba itong aking opinion dito, Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is not part of our budget but was included in the Bayanihan too.
Okay.
Because of COVID, yes.
All right. Maganda naman po siguro yung inyong partnership with DTI, and DOLE, no? As far as is concerned.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Now, in the tourism's department own words, it said that, and I quote, the allotment signifies the recognition of the tourism sector by the Senate and House of Representatives, which ensures the survival of tourism micro, small, and medium enterprises. The department is optimistic that collectively the industry can weather this challenge and come out stronger and better. With the government's support to the Bayanihan 2, the DOT shall continue to handhold its stakeholders towards recovery and carry out the plans and programs under the Tourism Response and Recovery Plan in its full capacity. End of quote. Now, of course, I do believe this, that just mere words, no, to perhaps challenge us or excite us. But do you believe that this can be a reality in this pandemic, Madam Chair?
With the Bayanihan too, with based on the consultations with the private sector, yun po unang hiningi nila is number one, the working capital loans. This was also represented in the Arise Bill which came from Congress. Kaya po we are thankful to the bicameral that nag-allot sila ng 6 billion for MSMEs. 99% po of the from accommodation are from MSMEs. So yun po yung hiningi nila for number one. Kasi ngayon lang po tourism employed 5.7 million people noong 2019. As of today, 4.8 million na po ang affected. So yun po yung hinihingi ng industriya ngayon. Yung working capital loans, tapos yung sa 3 billion naman po, in-include po ng BICAM, marami po kasi sa atin either walang-wala ng trabaho or underemployed. So yun po ay makakatulong sa kanila. These are for unemployed and displaced workers through DOLE. Pero yun po kasi yung kailangan ng industriya ngayon. But cash for work po.
Sa inyo namang agency, hindi naman po kayo nag-lay off ng mga personnel, di po ba?
Wala po sa government.
Wala po sa government.
Sa government, wala po.
In your presentation, there are words like convergence, sustainable, employability, develop marketing. So, what are your alternative plans kung ito pong mga inyong sinabi will not work and tourists don't actually come?
Actually, ang pinaka-importante po talaga sa amin is to restart tourism. Yun po yung kailangan po magkaroon na ng mga trabaho, ang mga nawalan ng trabaho. So kinakausap po namin lahat ng local government units at nagpapasalamat po kami sa Baguio City, kay Mayor Magalong at sa mga governors ng Region 1 sa Ilocos Sur, Ilocos Norte, Pangasinan at La Union na pumayag po sila na magbukas ang tourism sa between Region 1 and Baguio, yung Ridge to Reef Travel Corridor, to restart tourism para unti-unti na magkatrabaho ang mga tao, pero of course with health and safety protocols in mind. Yun po ang hinihingi talaga po ng tourism industry na mag-restart. Pero of course naiintindihan po namin na marami sa mga local residents hesitant pa kasi sila dahil takot sa COVID. But we want to assure them, kaya slowly namin ni-restart ang tourism, na we will restart tourism. But syempre, we have to be cautious, slow but sure start. So lahat po ay pinapanood rin po kung anong mangyayari dito sa from Baguio and Region 1. Pero we can assure you that we will do it very, very carefully. Unti-unti muna ang gusto po nila Mayor Magalong at ating mga governors, mga 200 muna daw per day muna ang tatanggapin nila to start lang to see first daw how it will go. Magaling naman po si Mayor Magalong. Number 1 po siya sa contact tracing at saka ang niyang cases ay very, very low. So, iuunti-unti namin. Tapos kami na po nagbigay nga ng digital platform. Bawat turista na pumunta sa Baguio or in any of the provinces mentioned, dapat online po magbubook ng hotel. Tapos nandoon na po lahat ang kanilang itinerary kung saan sila pupunta. Only a few tourist spots will be open at malalaman po kung saan sila mapupunta para madali rin po ang contact tracing. Pero gagawin po natin unti-unti po ito. Ang sabi po ng Baguio and Region 1, kung successful, we are doing this very slowly, they will start reopening to the other regions and eventually to NCR.
Medyo nga po mahirap, Mr. Chair, sapagkat ako rin gustong-gusto ko na pumunta ng Baguio dahilan sa unang-una, meron po kami mga churches doon. Alam niyo naman, ako po ay bishop. Pero napakahirap po at sinasabi po nila sa akin, wag muna sapagkat baka i-quarantine po ako because I am a senior citizen. Yung po yung problema dyan, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary. Anyway, the DRRP, in Tourism Response and Recovery Plan, is heavy on present response. But I don't see any end in sight that this will spearhead any recovery for your department. What are you, as you have stated, optimistic and collectively stronger and better about? Yun po yung aking tanong. Can you give me a concrete example of a real plan for the department, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary?
Yung pag-restart po ng tourism, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Oo, yan gaya ko sinabi po yung that's a start po between Baguio and Region 1. Sa Visayas naman po, ang Boracay po ay nagbukas na since June 16 sa Western Visayas. And they are now asking if they can be open to other provinces that are under a modified GCQ. At ito po ay hihingi natin sa IATF that they can be opened. Ang Bohol Panglao po, pupunta po kami ng September 22. Parang itetest po natin, magkakaroon kami ng the biggest trade event. Yung mga local sellers pupunta lamang sa Panglao pero ang hinihingi syempre nila ay negative sa RT-PCR test. Itetest run muna. Lahat naman po gusto magbukas pero syempre nag-iingat. So yun, itetest run namin po sa Panglao. For the first time yun, will be there, I think September 22 to 25 ang bukas ng FITEX. So, unti-unti po, slowly binubukas. Yung mga iba namang tourist destinations, like for example, kausap ko sa Camiguin, gusto na nila magbukas, naghihintay lang po sila ng COVID testing center para lahat ng dumating doon ay itetest muna sa RT-PCR at para mabilis. Ang El Nido naman, Palawan, nag-agree sila magbukas pero dapat negative RT-PCR bago dumating doon 48 hours before traveling. Pero they only wanted to test run sa isang resort muna as a dry run. So far, it has been successful. Sa Coron, may mga active cases pa, pero ang hinihiling talaga nila is a COVID testing center also. So yung mga iba po, yung may mga COVID testing center, gusto na nila magbukas slowly. So yun, gagawin namin, tutulungan namin sila. Ang importante po yung mga digital platform at yung mga digital apps para lahat po ay contactless na. And that's what the Department of Tourism provides.
Mr. Chair, kumusta po naman, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, yung availability ng mga transportation like the airlines?
Yun po nung una po, kaya po una pinag-usapan na namin kasi yung antigen testing sana ay we were looking at it na kung pwede bago sumakay mag-antigen testing. Gaya po ginagawa dyan sa House of Representatives. But just today, a few days ago, the WHO gave their reservations about antigen testing. So back to square one na naman kami. So ang pinag-usapan po sa IT this morning, na ipapilot muna yung antigen testing. Siyempre kasama pa rin ng RT-PCR sa Baguio City. At kasi kailangan po, though ang antigen testing, of course, the RT-PCR is still the gold standard, but then it is better than a rapid test kit. So ang pinag-usapan ay ipapilot muna siya sa Baguio, yung antigen testing. And kasi we need further studies po sa antigen testing. Although may I add po, sa Haneda at sa Narita, yun na pong ginagamit nila antigen testing. But of course, the WHO wants more tests on this before they can use it for travel. But sana, of course, Mr. Chair, mas gusto po nga namin yung easier kasi ang maganda po sa antigen testing, lumalabas po in 15 minutes. So right before boarding. Ang RT-PCR, you have to take it a few days bago syempre yung results matagal bago dumating. So yung antigen po pag-aaralan po daw ng WHO at ng DOH. So we are pushing for that kasi yun din po ang hinihingi ng mga airlines para makapag-travel po ang ating mga kababayan via airplane.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I do commend the DOT's truthfulness that the forecasted growth rate ending December 2020 will be at negative 78 as impact assessment of COVID-19 on international tourism. You did not try to sugarcoat anything. Does this mean that 2021 will be about domestic tourism? Is your department willing to gamble the health of our citizens for a better tourism given the COVID pandemic? Halimbawa po kaya hindi mag-cooperate yung ibang mga LGUs. Ano po kaya ang pwede nyo maging alternative dito?
Actually, ang ginagawa namin po, yung binigay po naming figures are from the UNWTO. Kasi ang hirap po mag-predict. Last night po, kausap namin ng World Travel and Tour Council, yung private sector world ng partner ng at hindi nga makapag-predict and everybody is going towards domestic tourism. So far po, lahat ng mga kinausap namin ng mga travel destinations, hinihingi lang po nila ay a COVID center or RT-PCR machines. So that's what we are hoping. Bukas po sila because they know that tourism is the backbone of their particular destination, gaya po ng Boracay. In Boracay po, ang ginawa po namin, we facilitated a donation of an RT-PCR machine para lang po mapadali kung may dumating man doon, kailangan mag-swab, mabilis yung results, hindi matagal po yung quarantine. Yun po, iniisa-isa po namin. So far, when we talk to our tourist destinations, they are just asking for a negative RT-PCR and eventually a COVID lab para pagdating doon ng pasahero, pwede mag-test ulit. At hinihingi rin po namin may isolation center just in case po na pagdating doon, kahit na negative RT-PCR tapos biglang nilagnat, i-isolate. So, inaayos po namin yung mga protocols. Yun. Ang maganda po, pagkausap mo all the different tourist destinations, gusto naman po nila magbukas. Pero syempre nangangamba kasi natatakot magka-COVID. So what we are doing is we are giving all the health and safety protocols. Yung digital app, gusto daw nila, yung contactless, pinuprovide namin lahat. Yung RT-PCR, yung mga COVID labs, hinihingi po namin sa DOH kasi kailangan na po mag-restart ang economy. Pero of course, cautiously, slow but sure. So far, marami po nagbukas na, slowly, sa awa po ng Diyos, walang nagkaka-COVID. Ang sinabi rin po ng WHO at ng DOH, basta may minimum health standards. Number one, wear a mask. Ngayon po sa Pilipinas, not only wear a mask but wear face shield. Watch your distance and also wash your hands all the time. Pero yung gaya po ng sinasabi po, di ba dati po may over-tourism, hindi na po pwede. Kailangan po all the tourist destinations are asking for carrying capacity. So, hindi na pwede yung siksikan, but okay lang po, basta long makarestart ang tourism.
Mr. Chair, meron na yata mga bukas na mga private resort, no, na ang pinupuntahan lamang ng mga private jets, di ba? So, hindi na kinakailangan siguro na anti-gen test nun, di ba?
Ang hiningi po ng DOH po mag-RT-PCR po.
Oo, okay.
Just to be sure po, negative.
Thank you very much for those answers, Madam Secretary. Mr. Chair, meron po lang po akong tanong dito sa TIESA, no? I would like to just inform you that I was one of the principal authors of the Tourism Act of 2009. In fact, I was the one who represented Congress in the bicameral conference, no? With then Senator Dick Gordon, you see. So nakikita niyo po yung support ko sa Department of Tourism. Ngayon, ito parang parokyal ito eh. Alright? Sapagkat in my district, the 6th District of Manila, Santa Ana, where I live, has been pronounced as heritage site. Oo. Sapagkat mga panahon pa ng Kastila and old houses and old churches, all of those things, no? At noong 2008, I was here in Congress and I asked the PESA at that time, di ba? PESA ba yun at that time? PTA at that time, if they could be able to put up a project, no? 2 projects in my district. Doon po sa heritage site, ang unang-una yung Plaza Calderon and the Rotonda. The Rotonda, meron po agreement doon ng City of Manila and the Embassy of Thailand, no? Doon po sa Rotonda. Binigyan ako ng budget doon during that time, but I did not accept the budget because of corruption. Hindi ko tinanggap yung budget because of corruption. Now, siguro naman, with your stewardship, Madam Secretary, and of course, our Chief Operating Officer, Pocholo Paragas, no? Siguro naman, pwede na akong makahingi ng project sa inyo when it comes to the Plaza Calderon area and the Rotonda in Santa Ana, which I believe kung gagawin po natin yung napakaganda, no? Itong Rotonda in partnership of the Embassy of Thailand, no? Palagay ko po talaga masisiyahan po ang buong mga bayan ng Santa Ana. So, can I ask for a response from COO Paragas, please?
Thank you, Sir Benny. Mr. Chair, what we do right now is we still accept applications or evaluations for projects. But just the way that coming from the Tourism Act, no, TSA is one of also the bigger hit na agencies. Right now, we're projecting po, I said a while ago, that we will get to normal collections for the travel tax by 2024 pa po. And right now, sir, we can provide you yung requirements, the templates for all of the application. And then, sir, once we already have funding for the suspended projects, and then eventually, sir, we will roll out already, sir, and looking into the ones for approval. So yun po, it would be best nga ho, maybe during this time, we can evaluate who yung sa Santa Ana.
Can you do that, please? Can you inspect the two areas and make some evaluations to it?
We'll take note of it, sir. And then we'll wait for the applications or a letter coming from your office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope that in 2022, I'm still a congressman. So I could be able to see the fruition of my project in Santa Ana. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Of course.
Yes, thank you, Minority Leader. We'd like to recognize part of the majority, the Honorable Jam Baronda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, Secretary Puyat, and the members of the House. I understand that how badly affected the tourism industry in this pandemic. I would just like to ask, no, and I know that you have identified key areas as MICE destinations. MICE meaning meeting, incentives, conventions, exhibitions, and events. And thankfully, Iloilo City was included. Actually, in June last year, 2024, we launched this project in Region 6. Senator Frank Dulon was there, Mayor Jerry Treñas, Governor Defensor, and even Sir Pocholo was there. Yusek Bongkato was there. And the former Secretary Narsling was there. I feel sorry for Vice Chairman Ted Haresco, the representative of the third most famous island globally. Bakit wala doon? Are you re-invited or not? But anyway, moving forward, what is the forecast of your department in so far as MICE is concerned, Madam Secretary?
Secretary. Yes, Mr. Chair.
respond, no?
Yes. Mr. Chair, under a modified GCQ, pwede na po ang 50%. Tourism is already allowed. Pwede na po ang 50% of the capacity. But we also take note of the fact na it's also up to the local government unit. Some local government units, kahit na po pwede na po ang 50%, they are hesitant. Gusto pa rin nila i-limit yung number of people. But under the modified GCQ, pwede na po ang 50% of the capacity. For example, it says it's good for 1,000, pwede na po ang 500. But of course, this is in concurrence with the local government unit.
Oh, Secretary, so how much is the proposed budget for MICE campaign in 2020 and 2021?
We continually naman talk to, in fact, last week po, we were talking to Governor Defensor. We're always talking to Mayor Treñas. And of course, it depends on the, you can give us a budget and we can provide for it. But of course, sana po, pumayag na po ang local government units para dito. Kung pumayag naman po, wala naman problema. Of course, we have already given our health and safety protocols for MICE as early as, I think, August. We've given it already. Meron na pa siyang health and safety protocols approved according to the world standards and the DOH and WHO. So, depende po sa LGU kung kampante na po, pwede na papayag po, can just give us a proposal and we can support that.
Yes, thank you, Secretary. I hope the next time, let us also join some other congressmen, because I believe I was only the congresswoman who was present during the event, para at least mapagtulungan natin. If there are other events like this, activity or projects, kung isasama natin yung House Rep members natin, baka makatulong po tayo. Especially po si Vice Chair Haresco. He is really looking forward, is campaigning for rural infrastructure, and this will really boost the tourism industry, especially to be aligned to the priority program of the president, in bringing inclusive growth in the countryside. Thank you so much, Secretary, and thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Jam Baronda. Don't worry. You still have a rejoin there,
Yes,
Congressman Haresco.
Mr. Chair, clarification lang po kay Secretary Romulo. The bottom-up approach, the mayor or the LGU has to write to you, and the district is not involved. Is that what you're saying, Secretary?
No, we of course we always talk to the local government units, and of course we will involve the congressman.
Just a follow-up from the chair regarding the point raised by Congressman, the Vice Chair Haresco. What if the LGU will not endorse anything, but it is already considered a tourist potential even before by previous LGU officials? So hindi po madedevelop?
We were talking about the MICE po. Is that the MICE?
Together with other rural infrastructure programs for tourism.
With infrastructure po, it's with the TIEZA.
TIEZA?
TIEZA. That's our infrastructure arm. That's
Yes,
TIEZA.
can we get a reply from TIEZA? Because I was following up the discussions earlier. You're mentioning at bottom to top, the process. What if those in the bottom will not endorse it, even if it is already considered a tourist destination, a tourist attraction in the past, but the present officials who are sitting down right now, those in the bottom are not endorsing it? Would that would be a problem when your approach is bottom to top? I think that is one of the scenarios also that we would like to look into. Paano na po yung proseso?
Mr. Chair, I think that was a discussion pertaining to the TRIPSI kanina regarding the roads. But just to add to that too, TRIPSI is under the DPWH and USEC Art. But we also encounter infrastructure concerns sa ganyan. Yung bakit pag nagpalit the dynamics of politics and all of these things. And that's why for the new applications that we'll be getting, we are really involving also the RDC, the Regional Development Councils, and then of course the MOA, indicating that there is a collaboration between the LGU, the provincial government, and of course DOT and TIEZA. So yun, sir, we are looking.
Question. When you say RDC, who would endorse through the RDC? Only the representatives there. You would consider it already?
Sir, in terms of the requirements namin for a board approval, there is the RDC. It will be forwarded by TIEZA and of course yung proponent. So ipa-review namin sa RDC. Once we get approval, that's the only time it will get board approval. Just the same, sir, as the guidelines for the DPWH. I think yung kay Kong Haresco a while ago, it's more of the bottom to top for the roads. So I'd like to revert that part, sir, kay USEC Art.
Okay. Yes, I think probably later, Congressman Ted. I think we will try to trash that out because we're just like your concern. Medyo may konting kailangan ayusin dyan sa bottom to top. You know, like in the provinces, in the different regions, sometimes the dynamic changes. And when it changes, paano yung mga nasimulan na dati? Paano yung mga na-identify na dati? So kung hindi yun ma-endorse ngayon, so hindi po pondohan kasi walang endorsement.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, for TIEZA kasi, most of the, if not all
but
of
first,
the... Yes.
well, we've been notified that the three of us are in violation of our social distancing. Can we please have some? We need to unbunch. I know we're all close and we love each other, but we need to follow the protocols of the. So please maintain our 1 meter distance from each other.
Okay.
Yes, sir. If
So
I may-
anyway, you may reply later because you'd like to give the time again to those in the list, but those are our concerns. So Mr. Chairman, I think we are on the next interpellator for the minority representatives.
Kimbo.
Okay.
Yes. The Honorable Kimbo is recognized.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right.
Stella.
Mr. Chair, I wanted Sana just to give a short manifestation, but I caught the tail end of the interpellation of Minority Leader Benny, and I heard him say that expected contraction of the tourism sector is 78%. So nakakabahala talaga ito, Mr. Chair, because that means if the value added of tourism is about 3 trillion, so 78% of that is about 2.34 trillion. And that in itself is already equivalent to about a 5% contraction in the GDP of the whole country. So talagang kailangan talaga natin to hold hands and really do everything that we can to avert that 78% contraction, Mr. Chair. So I would like to express my full support for the budget of the DOT. And ngayon pa lang po, Mr. Chair, kahit na wala pang Bayanihan 3, susuportahan ko na po kung ano man suporta ang pwedeng ibigay ng Bayanihan 3 para sa tourism sector. For my question po, Mr. Chair, isa lang po, no? I just wanted to ask about conserving historical sites. So I'd like to know if this is part of the geotourism branding strategy that the good secretary talked about earlier. And if it is, magkano po ang budget na nakalaan for that po?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, we will cover the conservation of cultural and heritage sites through our product development office and the tourism promotions board. We will have a budget allotted. You can just, actually, it can just be given. There's really no limit for this subject to the proposals and the preparation of the tourism product development plan at the local level. So there's really no limit to that.
Wow, that's fantastic news, Sec. And Mr. Chair, just final note, very short. I'd like to commend the good secretary for being a very, very inspiring leader. Ang galing po niya i-consolidate ang lahat ng stakeholders. And because of that, she was able to mobilize resources, however few those resources are, for purposes of assisting the critically impacted firms of our sector. So mabuhay po kayo, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Rep. Stella. I'd like to recognize the Honorable Mark Go from Baguio City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to find out from Secretary Puyat of how much was the recommended budget of the Department of Tourism to the Department of Budget before the NEP was finalized, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, nabawasan lang po kami ng 93.6 million.
So maliit lang.
Opo.
Would you like that amount to be reinstated, Madam Secretary?
Of course po, pero of course we are mindful of the fact that we have COVID, we have limited funds. So we will always work on what is given to us.
Mr. Chair, during the DBCC meeting, I was present and I asked the same question I asked to the Secretary of Finance, Secretary of NEDA, and the Secretary of Budget. I asked Secretary Carl Chua of how much is the contribution of tourism to the GDP, and he mentioned 12%.
12.7%.
12.7%. And that's exactly what you presented this morning. And I said, if this department is contributing, particularly the tourism industry, is contributing 12.7%, and generates about more than 5 million jobs for our country, how come you have only given them a budget of 3.8 billion? This is just a very, very small fraction of the budget given to even small bureaus of other departments. And really, I told them I would not say disappointment, but I feel that it's not sufficient to carry your function. That's why I recommended that if it is possible, that we should increase your budget. Can you imagine? We are the ones bringing people here to invest and generates employment, taxes for the government, income for the different companies and industries in the country, and yet you don't have money to help these different institutions. You have indicated a budget of 2.006 billion for your product and market development program. And if I look at the details of this, it only shows that there are no hard projects or physical development that you want to do in these different let's say, heritage sites of the different parts of the country. Parang packaging lang, kumbaga. And I think it's high time that we should raise this budget to cover also support that you can give to the different provinces, cities, in terms of the physical upliftment of these different parks, heritage sites, and other related tourist areas, Mr. Chair. I would like to comment. If you will be given the option, Madam Secretary, of how much do you really want for your department so that you will be able to carry on the very impressive vision and mission that you have stated in your presentation, how much will that be?
Based on our utilization, of course, we would want that what we asked for, the additional, we were nagbumaba by 93.6 million. But again, of course, I would like to thank Mr. Chair, your support to the DOT budget. Of course, we would want to ask kung anong hiningi namin initially. But of course, we are mindful nga of what is the pandemic. But of course, we are thankful that you want to increase our budget.
Yeah, can you imagine our budget for 2021 as recommended is 4.5 trillion. You're one of the lowest departments, and it's a pity. We want to bring in people from the outside of the country. We want to let people move around the different within the region and intra-region later on. I think we need full support to the Department of Tourism. And Mr. Chair, I move that we should bring back the original proposed budget of the Department of Tourism. And as stated, the additional amount should be about 100 million or less than 100 million, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my manifestation. The other question that I have here will be for Tiesa. I would like to ask the head of Tiesa of how much is the loss of Tiesa in terms of revenue from travel tax since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country up to today. Magkano yon?
Yes. Honorable Go, can we make that a compound question na so we can wrap it up?
Yes. Well, that will be my... I have a follow-up question depending on the answer, Mr. Chair, if I may be allowed.
Mr. Chair,
COO, please proceed.
Based right now on our computation, we are actually projecting a drop of 83% for this year, which is totaling roughly about 1.2 billion. This is a difference from 2019 that the travel tax collection was 7.2. And of course, from that collection, we get roughly about 50% of the collection goes to Tiesa. But we also handle the operations. So we end up with roughly about 30%, 32% net of that amount, sir.
Mm-hmm. And you are expecting, probably next year pa to, to bring back the same level of revenue that you had in 2019, if things will turn okay in 2021.
Mr. Chair, based on the study, it's for 2024 pa po magno-normalize yung collection ng travel tax.
Mm-hmm. So you don't expect anything. So the thing that you committed to the city of Baguio will not materialize even in 2021.
Right now, Mr. Chair, what we're trying to do is we have our ongoing projects and we're looking at other forms of collection and to see where we can look at the projects na pwedeng masimulan. So we do this continuously with the infra committee and of course with the board, seeing kung saan pwedeng ma-roll out, because the one in Baguio, the one that we have there is actually a board-approved project. So, sir, we're just waiting for that. And the moment that travel tax collection increases again, we can start reviewing and possible implementation already.
Are we going to see at the end of the tunnel by 2021 or 2022?
Mr. Chair, as indicated a while ago, we really wanted to discuss this based on projecting after the end of the year, like what Congressman Ma'am Kimbo said a while ago, the construction and all of these things. It's too hard to say right now because even the information we've been getting from IATA and WTO and yung sa travel, it's really on a case almost day-to-day, sir. So I'd like to, maybe I can connect with you after the end of the year and we can start projecting after that, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Pocholo. Mr. Chair, at this point, I would like to wrap up by stating my full support to the budget of the Department of Tourism, with the addendum that we should include the one that was the amount that was reduced by the Department of Budget, which is equivalent to about 93 million pesos, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, and magandang hapon sa lahat.
Thank you, Chairman Go. As many of us here know, Chairman Go is also the chairman of the Committee on Higher Education here in the House, and the CHED is also a beneficiary from the travel tax. So we are all, we are all with you, Congressman Go. We'd like to recognize now the Honorable Sergio Dagook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone, to the Tourism Department of Tourism family. Unang-una po, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, considering that we are now focusing on domestic tourism, ano po yung pinaka-priority programs ninyo to support that direction?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ang pinaka-priority po namin is to really slowly reopen the different tourist destinations. So we really talk to each and every LGU kung ano yung mga hesitancy nila, bakit nila ayaw magbukas. Some we are successful and they want to open as long as ang turista na pumunta doon ay may negative RT-PCR. In other cases, yung mga ibang tourist destinations humihingi po ng COVID labs. So yun po. In Baguio po, tumulong po through the TPB ng Visitors Online Management Service na para bago pumunta doon ay lahat po ay mag-online. Kami po nagbigay ng application para lahat po makapunta sa Baguio ay online po at pati yung health declaration form, etc. And all the different establishments na accredited by the DOT, binibigyan po namin ng libreng application para po yung contactless po lahat at po to handle capacity management.
Ibig sabihin po, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, hindi po masyadong malaki ang budget na kinakailangan sa priority program na yan.
Malaki po ang sa application po, malaki po eh. Kasi these are digital apps. So that's what we give po.
Doon po ba, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, sa binawas ng Department of Budget and Management na proposed budget ninyo, hindi po ba apektado yung mga programa ninyo sa domestic tourism kagaya sa programa na yan? Hindi po ba siya apektado?
Ang binawas po ay 93.6 million, pero again, we will make do with what we have po.
Okay, so finally, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, I hope joining with us is the Regional Director ng Caraga. Ano po ba yung specific program ninyo sa province of Dinagat Islands and as far as tourism is concerned? Kung medyo wala si RD, may I just kindly request to furnish me with my office with a copy of the specific programs, including its budget for Dinagat Islands.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I'm not sure, Yusek Art. Mr. Chair, can I give the floor to Yusek Art?
Yes, thank you, Secretary. Mr. Chair, Congressman, maayong hapon, sir. Ang regional office is rolling out several activities for Dinagat Islands. In fact, within a couple of weeks, Mr. Chair, we will be holding planning workshop, no, a workshop with all of the LGUs of Dinagat Island for master planning tourism. And of course, the main positioning of Dinagat Islands would be sun and beach. You having multiple islets, and the most beautiful islets we have seen in that part of the country, sir. So that is the intention of the DOT, is to preserve it. And then moving towards post-pandemic, nakikita po natin na promoting destinations like Dinagat would be able to promote yung minimum health and safety guidelines na na-mention po ng aming kalihim kanina, by providing activities outdoor, providing enough space and destinations to go. Makakatulong po yung Dinagat Island. Meron na rin po kaming papasok na bagong regional director. Papakilala po namin sa inyo once nakapag-oath na po siya kay Secretary Puyat, sir. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair, Secretary.
Actually, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, dalawang magtatatlong taon na po ako bago ako nagiging representative ng party list namin ay Provincial Tourism Council President. Until now, I am subsidizing some of the expenses in promoting the Dinagat as a tourism destination. Hindi po kagaya ng Siargao. Ako po ay nakatira ngayon sa Siargao because I'm managing two electric cooperatives, yung Dinagat Island Electric Cooperative at Siargao Island Electric Cooperative. Pero ang concern ko po ay Dinagat kasi they are really behind in as far as promotion is concerned. So with the present situation, I think it would be practical na may promote natin yung mga tourist destination na hindi pa ganong kilala, dahil for example in Dinagat napakababa po yung cases doon sa Dinagat, so we can really entice local tourism there. I hope you can implement next year programs that will promote also Dinagat. Kindly inform my office, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, kung ano yun, at aalalay po ako lahat doon.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, if we could invite in all our consultations the good representative or his staff, so you could be included. We would love to promote Dinagat Island.
Sige po, doon nga po sa opisina ko nagmi-meeting kami sa Tourism Council sa opisina po ng Dinagat Island Electric Cooperative. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Dagook. We'd like to now recognize the Honorable Vice Chair, Congressman Juni Kua. Congressman Juni Kua, you are on deck.
Hello?
Yes. Hello, Manong Juni, you're recognized.
Oh, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to express our appreciation in behalf of the province of Quirino to the Department of Tourism for its support. I understand that among the industries that are seriously affected by the COVID pandemic is the tourism industry. which includes many subsectors, hotels, restaurants, transport companies, etc., service industries. The effect on the industry is really very deep, very heavily impacted. And this, I understand, will continue to be like this until and after we have discovered a workable vaccine that is safe. So there is a long period of time to wait. So having said that, I think the department really deserves the support of Congress. Now, um, having said all of this, may may uh, may I know what the Department of Tourism is undertaking as programs uh, so that the Philippines and the local sites among local tourists continue to be aware, and when the proper time comes, the nation is ready.
Yes, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Chair for Quirino Province for making us part of the 49th founding anniversary of your province and for being the first to host the first virtual search for your Binibining Quirino and where you promoted all the various tourism sites. Actually, this is an example of how you can promote your site under the new normal. What you did, Mr. Chair, what Quirino did was we were able to reach more people, even out the people outside of Quirino, and we were able to promote Quirino through virtually. We continue po to promote our country internationally. We continually to tell everybody that it's safe and health and safety are number one in the country. And of course, we continually support all the domestic promotions of all the different provinces, like what we did in Quirino, because we feel even virtually that's how we can continue to promote the country, to continue to promote the different provinces. And we are also talking to the different LGUs kasi baka po may mga products na wala sa radar namin that you could tell us and we can help promote.
So thank you so much, Madam Secretary, for your response and your promotion for Quirino. I hope that when things come to normal, we can invite you to be there and no longer virtually.
Yes.
So yeah. So Mr. Chairman, that's all that I want to hear from the Secretary. I just want to make sure that we are not slowing down, but we continue to be aggressive in the promotion of tourism. And I join my other colleagues in the support of the budget proposal of the Department of Tourism. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Kua. We now recognize the Honorable Bernadette Herrera D. DH, you're now recognized. Congresswoman Herrera D.
Dito nakasakot. In-advisean ka na, ikaw na susunod.
Bigla ako.
Kong BH. Technical crew, is she in the room? Representative Bernadette Herrera D.
Una, tinatawag ka.
Habol na lang. Hindi ko narinig eh. Set up pa ako.
Yes, Kong BH, we can hear you. Are you ready? Can we have a 5-minute suspension for members here to be able to take a quick break? Hearing is suspended. Hearing is resumed. Now recognize the Honorable Herrera D.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po sa DOT family. Sec Berna, congratulations. Thank you for all the efforts you've been doing during this pandemic. Actually, basically, my questions lang naman will revolve around the earmarked revenues of DOT dahil nangihinayang ako, Secretary, dahil meron tayong 12.5 billion na unused na balance in the earmarked revenues of December 2019. Siguro my question is, how do you think we can help DOT so we could tap this? Dahil parang every year, ang nagagamit lang natin is almost 2 billion of that earmarked revenues, and it's such a waste wherein we need that much funding for our tourism.
Mr. Chair, yes, for 2019, I think we were able to utilize 92% of our budget. What we're doing now is we are consistent. What we are doing differently now is we are consistently talking to all the different LGUs, all the prime tourist destinations, and all those also yung emerging tourist destinations to find out what their needs are, especially in light of the COVID pandemic. So mas ano po kami ngayon, mas participatory. We talk to each and everyone. Kasi yun na nga po ang kailangan natin.
No, Secretary, what I'm referring to is the earmarked revenues.
Yung pumasok
revenues. Okay.
The earmark revenues na pumasok kasi is 5.9. But ang nagagamit lang nyo po is 1.8 billion. Eh, ang balanse ng total revenues na yon is 12.5 billion. So sayang naman po as of December 2019, the balance of the earmark revenues of the Tourism Promotions Board is at 12.9 billion. Eh, baka there are some things that we have to amend so that you can fully utilize this revenue.
Okay. Mr. Chair, can I refer to COO Tonet Aliones?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary and Representative Bernadette Herrera for that question. Yung earmark po na 12 billion ay nakapaloob sa ating special account in the general fund. Yes. And you were right, ma'am, we are really bound by what the Department of Budget and Management approves na pwede pong magamit every year, no, ng Tourism Promotions Board and the Department of Tourism. So we welcome po your initiative to perhaps revisit the law so that in times like this, we will be able to convince the Department of Budget and Management to allow us to dip into the SAGF. Actually, ma'am, yung pinopose po namin sa TPB sana for next year is in the amount of 2.2 billion. Pero ang na-approve din lang po sa amin under the SAGF ay 1.7 billion for next year.
Yeah,
yes,
I saw. That's why
salamat,
precisely,
ma'am. Apo.
Baka pwede tayong magtulungan kung ano ang dapat namin i-amend dun sa special provision so that we could make use of this. This is 12.5 billion. Sayang
Yes,
naman
ma'am.
yung pera. Okay.
Apo.
Pero meron ako gustong i-clarify. Nalilito ako because dun sa expenditure program nyo sa NEP, ang actual expenditures nyo dun is 958 million. Pero doon sa BESF, nakalagay 1.8 billion. So may difference ng 1 billion. Saan nagkamali?
Para po ma'am yun sa Tourism Promotions Board din?
Yeah, sa expenditures. Oo. Dun sa NEP, pag titignan nyo yung actual, 958 million ang nakadeclare na expenditures. But if you look at the actual earmark revenues in the BESF, it's 1.8 billion.
Apo. Yung difference
There's a
kasi ma'am,
difference.
apo, yung naka-reflect ma'am na 900 million pertains po to the direct operations. So yung other items po of the budget, yung accounts for the difference po between the 1.1.
Oh, okay. Yun
Yes,
lang, Madam Secretary, baka pwede nating pagtulungan. You can visit talaga itong earmarked revenues and then maybe we could sit down as to what legislative initiatives we can make so that we could maximize the earmarked revenues that's entering the Tourism Promotions Board.
Yes.
So we
Thank
could
you.
help
Thank you,
our
ma'am.
tourism industry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'd now like to recognize the Honorable Christine Singson Mihan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're recognized, Kong Christine.
Yes, good afternoon to Madam Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat, the DOT family, and my fellow House members. Noon kasi nagmi-meeting kami with the arts, culture, and creative industry na it's led by Kong Tof de Venecia, and we've had discussion with the National Parks Development Committee. And meron kasi silang nabanggit before na dalawang priority projects. So number one po is the transfer of the NPDC office. Ang pagkaintindi ko po kasi, the proposed transfer of NPDC office is one of the agency's priority projects in compliance to the National Museum of the Philippines Act 11333 enacted in 2019. Which designate the entire eastern section of Rizal Park as the National Museum Complex. So there's a need po na ma-relocate tong office nila. And number two, the digital transformation of NPDC in cooperation with DICT dahil po sa new normal where information technology will play a big role. There's also a need to create an ICT division, as I was told. Ano po ang mandate ng pag-create po ng ICT division and bakit siya kailangan? And i-compound ko na rin all my questions para mas mabilis. Were you allotted a budget for these two mentioned priority projects po ninyo? the transfer of NPDC office and the digital transformation of NPDC? And if not, how much po yung kailangan nyo sa budget? These questions po, Mr. Chair, is directed to ED Cecil Lorenzana Romero of the NPDC.
Good afternoon. Okay, for the question about the transfer of the NPDC office, so the budget for the transfer is around 15.9 million. We asked for this in the budget in our proposal, but it was not included because medyo mas konti na yung capital outlay that was approved by the DCM. There's a need to transfer the office from the eastern section to the central section of Rizal Park. For the second one, the other priority project is the ISSP, the ICT division for national parks. Right now, the current organizational structure for national parks, medyo naglalag behind yung ICT. We only have, I think, one plantilla position for the ICT. So there's a need for a division to address, to bring the parks also to the 21st century. Like right now, for both IA and NPDC, we signed MOAs with SMART so that we can provide public Wi-Fi to our park goers. So also to complement that, we need a strong ICT foundation to help maintain that infrastructure also. The budget for the ISSP is 117 million. It's also not included in our current budget. So these are two unprogrammed priority projects for NPDC.
So, Mr. Chair, just would like to manifest my support na these two mentioned projects will be funded sana for this 2021 budget. And then to end, Mr. Chair, I wish to manifest my support to our good Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat, and the whole of DOT, as well as DOT's Regional Circuit Marketing Plan and the so-called Tourism Corridor Plan, as DOT strategy in gradually but safely opening up tourism soon. Good luck rin kay RD Jeff Ortega, who's working on opening Region 1 soon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, everyone. And going back, sana mabigyan ng support si NPDC, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, we'd like to recognize the Honorable Vice Chairman Chiquiting Sagarbarria. Congressman Chiquiting Sagarbarria.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My signal is very weak, so I don't know if I can have video conference with you. But nevertheless, I would like to direct my question to Madam Secretary. Very quick. It's actually a question is a request. Well, Madam Secretary, here in Region 7, Central Visayas, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Here in Central Visayas, Region 7, we have created a tourism roadmap, and of which there were some infrastructures that was needed. And the infrastructure that was needed was submitted to central office for a perusal. And sad to say, Madam Secretary, up to now, to no avail, we do not see it in the net. So I hope you can give us some special interest in this for us to be able to pursue our dreams here in Central Visayas or Region 7 on our tourism roadmap. Actually, and another one, number 2, is this is the 4th budget hearing that I have attended, especially in the Department of Tourism, which I have great interest in. The request that I have given to you personally to come up or give us here in Negros Oriental what we call as the hyperbolic chamber. Last year you said you will try. This year I hope again that you are going to try harder this time for us to be given a hyperbolic chamber. Because as you know, Negros Oriental is really a scuba diving destination. So that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, with regard to the hyperbaric chamber, that was referred to TIAZAC. and in fact, that was a priority, and it is with TIEZA. So I would ask COO Cholo to reply to that. When regard to roads, we give that to we jointly talk to the DPWH with regard to that because they are the implementing agency. But we will get back to you on that. USEC Art will answer. But with regard to the hyperbaric chamber, Mr. Chair, may I ask the permission of COO Cholo to reply to that?
Mr. Chair, this was actually just to discuss also the hyperbaric. We have already the existing procured for the previous set, but right now, as discussed with the COVID effort of TIEZA, part of the funds for that is also contributed to the COVID effort. So right now, even if we'd like to look into the process of approving a hyperbaric chamber for Negros, we would have to wait a little bit longer until tourism recovers again.
Okay, so in terms of priority, just to clarify and just for everybody else present, this is a health, essential health
Yes.
matter, no?
Yes.
Especially safety,
Yes.
etc. Just for the record, when it comes to priorities, is this higher up than our other usual project?
Right now, sir, what would happen is it depends on the requirements that we would be able to get from them because the biggest concern for hyperbaric chambers is really the operation and maintenance. So once there's a approval in terms of the MOA between the different parties, specifically also like most of the hyperbaric, if not all, we connect it to the hospital there because it takes a lot of technical knowledge to operate it. So we will coordinate again with the PCSSD on this one, and of course, Congressman moving forward. But I agree. I remember our conversation, sir. I think in 2018 and 2019 for this. So
Yeah.
it
And the
really
same
takes
request
some
was
time.
made by Congressman Biason.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Duly noted.
all right. So with that, Kong Sagarbaria, anything more?
Yes, so thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I hope that they are going to give again interest or special interest because this does not only concern about tourism, also concerns about health. So hopefully I will be in the top priority, not essential, not necessary, but priority. So we will be having our hyperbolic chamber soon as possible time. And by the way, the Negros Oriental Provincial Hospital is ready for this. We have a place for this. So I hope that that will come soon for the betterment of everyone and for the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. We now recognize the Honorable Christopher De Venecia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello to my BFF and Lodi, Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat. Hello. COO Cholo Paragas of Tieza, may utang ka pa sa amin, Cholo. For the PTA Beach Resort in San Fabian, tutukan na natin to. Asek Howie Oy King, who we've been working closely with, super Lodi din. RD Jeff Ortega, my favorite. And of course, ED Cecile and Attorney Gillier, isa pang Lodi. All right. So just one quick question for DOT before I head on to the attached agencies. So the OSEC will be implementing a branding campaign, if I'm not mistaken, worth 1.5 billion pesos under the locally funded projects. But then the Tourism Promotions Board will have its own budget of 1.7 billion. So may I know if there will be a difference between the promotional and campaign and marketing initiatives of both the OSEC and the TPB?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The DOT branding is basically in charge of the overall brand and country branding initiatives such as sustainable tourism, tourism products, and the communication of our safe and healthy protocols and measures, emerging local destinations, and the promotions in opportunity markets. Now, with the Tourism Promotions Boards, it's in charge of marketing the developed branding framework on ground, managing the marketing of primary tourism destinations and the promotions in key markets, and domestic regional support to shift to safe and smart tourism, optimizing technology, and to promote contactless and efficient travel.
All right, so good to know. Mr. Chair, I actually fully agree with the statement of the Secretary, not just now, but earlier also in the hearing, that we need to continuously invest in marketing and promotions for this sector so that the Philippines will be top of mind of our tourists for when international tourism is alive and vibrant again.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
next
Chair.
question, thank you. The next question, Mr. Chair, is for Intramuros Administration kay Attorney Gilier. May I just ask, ano ba yung plans natin for San Agustin Church, which is among the 4 Philippine Baroque churches in the UNESCO World Heritage List that is in danger of being delisted, supposedly due to the construction of this Binondo Intramuros Friendship Bridge. So ano na po ba yung update dito? At may plano po ba ang IA, Mr. Chair?
Okay, Mr. Chair. We have been working closely with the Department of Public Works and Highways and the NCCA and the other cultural agencies po eh. Bottom line po is that we will ensure that there will be no delisting of San Agustin as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So there have been changes po in the design of the bridge on the part of DPWH, and on the part of Intramuros administration naman po is we have submitted to NCCA a conservation management plan that will ensure po that the buffer zone of San Agustin will be properly protected. And ang idea po is that this will eventually be submitted also to UNESCO in Geneva to ensure na whatever concerns that has been addressed regarding the bridge will be adequately addressed po. And that was also what UNESCO requested from us po.
Alright, so pasubmit na lang po ng document sa committee, Mr. Chair, Attorney G. And
Yes.
could I ask now that since I have you here, do you have a budget for your promotions and education that was included in this year's NEP?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we were supposed to have around more than 10 million for the tourism and promotions division campaigns, but that was also given up for the COVID response.
All right. So, Mr. Chair, IA has a 10 million request for their tourism promotions and education program. So, I hope that the committee can give this strong consideration. My last question, Mr. Chair, is for the National Parks Development Committee. So, this is for ED Cecile. Of course, we all know that Paco Park, one of the 2 parks that's being administered by the NPDC, is a national cultural treasure, no? That's in need not only of our attention, but also of government resources. So can we find out in the NEP 2021 if you were able to include a budget for your conservation management plan, as well as preventive maintenance, and if ever, how much will it cost if it wasn't included?
Yes, good afternoon. So we proposed a 7.1 million budget for the conservation management plan of Paco Park, together with the preventive maintenance, but it wasn't approved by the DBM also for the next year's budget. We've already talked to Escuela Taller to continue with the the CMP for Paco Park. We do put it's really important to maintain Paco Park, especially actually this is informally 200 years of Paco Park, 2020, and then we will be celebrating the 200th year officially of Paco in 2022. So we want to really maintain and preserve that area, that park.
So closing statement na lang, Mr. Chair, no? Tourism contributes 12.7% to our nation's GDP. But why is it that DOT only has a 0.08% share of the nation's budget? Parang it's not a fair incentive, Mr. Chair, for an agency representing a sector that's far exceeded its performance outcomes, no? In regards to tourist arrivals and tourism revenue. So, Department of Agriculture Secretary William Dar always calls for parity between agency performance and budget allocation. So, if sana madoble man lang ang budget ng DOT so that they have greater capacity for tourism recovery and development of new tourism products, I think that will go a long way for the sector, Mr. Chair. I mean, si Kong Stella kind of mentioned this earlier na it's very alarming yung contraction ng GDP contribution ng tourism. So we need to invest significantly so we don't just let it fall by the wayside. So Mr. Chair, we have cultural tourism, we have retirement tourism, we have medical tourism, MICE, sabi ni Kong Jam kanina. But we have events tourism. We even have digital tourism. They've been able to monetize in Europe and Africa. So ang dami pong products that we can develop in preparation for this sector's reopening. So sana we can capacitate the DOT with a budget that they'll need, especially for the tourism corridor, which includes Pangasinan. So just to put on record, in closing, Mr. Chair, the Arts and Culture and Creative Industries Block, or ACHIEVE, will be sending a letter to the Committee on APRO for the budgetary increases for DOT, Intramuros, as well as the National Parks Development Committee. So I'm confident that under the stewardship of Vice Chair Jack Duavit and of course Chair Eric Yap and Speaker Cayetano, the DOT will be capacitated with a budget that will be more responsive to the needs of the sector. Let's not let tourism fall by the wayside, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po and more power to DOT.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Kong Toff. We'd like to now recognize the Honorable Virgilio Lacson. Kong VG, are you on deck? Okay, Kong Lacson is disconnected right now. Can we now go to the Honorable Edgar Chato from the province of Bohol?
Committee hearing on tourism. Can you take over, Erwin? Mr. Chair, thank you very much. And I'm on another Zoom meeting, but thank you, Secretary Puyat. Good afternoon, together with our DOT family. And I would like to just manifest one very important point here. Looking at the budget of the Department of Tourism, it's so sad that it's not as big as we really expect the budget to be allocated. The budget is small with the department that is giving a lot of contribution to GDP and to the different sectors, and also it's a job creating agency. I would like to highlight the fact also that I am concerned because of the slowdown of tourism nationally and internationally. We cannot expect travel tax to be collected, Mr. Chair. And because of that, I'm concerned about the use of the travel tax as allocated in the Republic Act that we enacted in Congress before. That's for the TIEZA Fund, the TPV, and even the CHED. In the last hearing of the CHED, we were monitoring on whether the funds has really been used for tourism-related trainings and activities. And we would like to also highlight that in this meeting, that the DOT will be in closer coordination. I understand that they are in closer coordination with CHED, but there are a lot of funds left yet unused also that can be maximized, especially at this time when the pandemic needs also retooling of our players in the industry. The other point is, I want to know the reason why the travel tax, which I think will run to millions in the past collection, has not been fully utilized in the past years. I was made to understand that some of them, or large portion of it, was used already for COVID. There were a lot of proposals that I heard from our fellow congressmen that are not been used, not yet been funded, like Congressman of Negros Oriental, Congressman Zabaria. But what was the reason why they were not implemented at that point in time? And how can we generate funds other than the travel tax, which we know will be a little bit difficult at this time? Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman and Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair, can I give the floor to Cholo Paragas with regard to the implementation of TIEZA?
Okay.
Yes, before we proceed, just like to recognize the presence of the Honorable Jocelyn Lim Kai Chong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may
Please go
proceed.
ahead, CEO Paragas.
Yes, thank you, Kong Shato, for that question. Right now, sir, yes, we were looking at previously. I cannot speak for the previous years because if we look at all of the retained earnings or the income of TIEZA, which makes it unique versus the other budgets, it just accumulates year on year. And if you looked at the gap that we had, That's why we really am thankful for the actions of the board within the past 3 years, since 2016, 2017, and 2019, and of course, a portion of 2020, wherein the gap for the funding was really looked into within the past periods. Ang nangyari po, if you look at the total board approvals from 2017 to 2020, from 2016 alone of 290 million, we already have an approved infrastructure total of 11.64 billion, sir. So this was approved within 2017 to 2020. This is where we were looking at when we came in last April, or the second quarter of 2016. We really looked at how much was the money available for TIESA. And then based on that also looked at the reforms for board approval to make it more efficient, more and faster. Thus, we had the scoreboard system that was aligned with the National Tourism Development Plan, and of course the requirements for the different areas, and then made sure that it was streamlined already, creating different benchmarks and different templates, sir. And because of that, this was the reason why we were able to catch up in terms of the savings or the amounts that we had inside the office. And then in addition to that one, sir, we also had the cancellation of previously approved projects from years of the past, 2012, 2014, 2015, to make sure that we would free up again budget to look at possible future projects. So from that, sir, that really was a big impact towards utilizing the funds. Again, everything in hindsight is 2020. Sana, sir, like if COVID did not happen, we would actually be already in sync, to say the least, sir. And then, of course, in addition to that, your next questions are pertaining to where would we be getting funds. I think one of the things that we're really pushing for now, which I know you're familiar with, sir, in the Tourism Act, that in TIESA, there's also, aside from I, there is E, the enterprise side of it, sir. So we've been really, really pushing towards the creation of different tourism enterprise zones within the country. And actually, part of that direction was we already had the regional development plans approved, the master planning of the different regions for all of the Philippines. Master plan the Philippines, check for different areas where we can do the TEZs and build it. So, sir, just to give an idea, sorry, from a total of 20, in 2016, we only had 7 designated TEZs and 1 registered tourism enterprise. In 2020, within a span of 3 years, we already have 17 designated TEZs, 10 registered tourism enterprises, and 13 tourism estate management facilities and services. And of course, this will grow bigger. So hopefully from that one, sir, again, it cannot compensate for the travel tax, but it can already somewhat see the future of where it will be going. And then another thing that we've been pushing for the past, I think since 2017 as well, was the development of a tourism development fund. Again, sir, this is something that we've been looking at as a win-win situation towards really looking into travel tax per se. So again, this is again based on the learnings from the previous years, sir. So that would be my comment, Mr. Chair, pertaining to that one.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. And I will appreciate in aid of legislation that we will be furnished, the committee will be furnished with a copy on the utilization of the travel tax fund that went into TIESA. We also requested that shed in that same regard during the hearing of CHED. My next question, Mr. Chair, is on the guidelines for the implementation of social protection and recovery programs. Social protection direct to the workers of tourism, and the recovery programs for MSMEs. In Bayanihan 1, unfortunately, we were classified, tourism was classified as non-essentials. But this time, with Bayanihan 2, with the lobbying, of course, of Secretary Puyat and the private sector, we succeeded in getting the listed funds for specified funds for tourism. May we know if the guidelines are already completed on this, Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chair, with regard to SB Corp, can I refer to Yusek Bong Bengzon? And with regard to the DOLE, may I please refer it to Yusek Art Bongkato?
Thank you, Secretary. Mr. Chair, Your Honor, just like to provide updates to Congressman Chato. We've had a series of meetings with the SB Corp of the Department of Trade and Industry with respect to the allocation of the 6 billion pesos under Bayanihan 2. And as of September 10, here are the key agreements between the SB Corp and the Department of Tourism. Number one, SB Corp has agreed to 0% interest for all tourism enterprise loans under this program. Number two, SB Corp agreed to a grace period of 1 year and a repayment period of 3 years for a total loan term of 4 years. And SB Corp will therefore come up with a revised computation for the service fee based on these terms. We also took a look at the requirements, and as part of making it easier for our stakeholders to avail of the loan, we have simplified such requirements. And from the DOT, SB Corp will only require DOT accreditation upon application. In addition, no collateral will be required for the loan applicants. The only requirement, specific requirement thus far of SB Corp from the loan applicants would be the 2 to 3 minute recorded video presentation on the proposal. Related to this, we have also requested SB Corp to share with us a monitoring report on the loans that have been processed without going into the specifics of the company and the loan amount. We just wanted to get a general sense of the take-up and also an idea of what enterprise categories have been availing of the loans. But the agreement is to focus on micro, small, and medium enterprises, which is also the focus in the Tourism Response and Recovery Plan, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, what is most important to hear is that close coordination of the OT and the executive department that are supposed to execute the projects is being done, because allocating the fund is one thing, making sure that the funds are readily accessible to our tourism sector is very important. And I hope that the guidelines, even on the aspect of SB Corp, are less complicated, because we really want the tourism sector to avail of it. I discussed with DOTR Secretary Tugade and LTFRB on possibilities of giving also our van operators that are now complaining yung mga loans nila kasi hindi in-approve yung ating 1-year proposal, Mr. Chair. So 1 year grace period. What was approved only was a 60-day grace period, and this did not sufficiently address the needs of van operators in the tourism sector na yung mga vans nila talagang naka-loan naman yung mga yan. So we asked the LTFRB the possibility of granting them special permits. Medyo okay naman sila doon. Maybe closer contact with the OT can also facilitate whatever way we can keep alive our industry players, both in the formal sector, meaning those who are employed by the enterprises, and in the informal sector, mga masahista, mga kung ano-ano yung mga trabaho na wala silang formal employment, they can go to the other programs of TUPAD or the SWD and the other things. But hopefully, we will not only be limited by the 10 billion that was realigned for the different intended sectors. We hope that we can also capture part of the 51 billion through the GFIs, so that the tourism sector can really have a broader avenue of fund support to our industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Mr. Chairman and Madam Secretary.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kong Ed. We'd like to recognize the Honorable Crystal Bhagat Singh, and that will be followed by a brief manifestation by Vice Chairperson Lim Kai Chong. So, Deputy Minority Leader Bhagat Singh.
Deputy Majority Leader po ako, Mr. Chair.
Majority, I'm sorry. Tumatagal na rin. Okay, kulang ang kape. Yes, Deputy Majority Leader Bhagat Singh.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Sec Berna and the rest of the DOT fam, and to everybody there in Congress. Siguro I'll start with my concerns, which are primarily regarding Intramuros. One is Intramuros as a destination is dependent on visitors, including the businesses inside as well. How is Intramuros and how is Intramuros now, and what measures did you take or adopt to make way for the new normal?
Mr. Chair, can I give the floor to Admin Guilherme?
Thank you, Secretary. Mr. Chair, with respect to the question of Congresswoman Bagaching, the destinations inside Intramuros are still closed because we are still under GCQ. But we shifted all of our engagements po talaga on internet. So we shifted all our platforms to the digital world. So we have been holding po learning sessions, and then through the support din po of the Department of Tourism, we were able to produce multimedia content that is considered to be an online guiding po, tour guides of 3 destinations inside Intramuros. So significant po yung engagement that we've done so far in terms of the digital platform. We've received actually more support or the reach right now of our Facebook and our other social media sites is increasing compared to previous years din po. So we'll also actively supporting din po and coordinating with the community to ensure din po that when we do open, Intramuros will be safe po.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Congresswoman.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Given the current situation, how do we revive tourism in Intramuros? And also, last year, we supported Intramuros administration under its current budget for tourism promotion. But I understand, as you said kanina to Kong Tof, that it has been rechanneled and that you had a 10 million budget for tourism and promotion and education program. What else can we do to help you have this? I hope it's still part of your budget also for 2021. Is it part of your budget for 2021? Still?
We submitted, Mr. Chair, the proposal to DBM, but this was also not included. But again, we understand naman po talaga yung situation. But moving forward po in terms of how we will revive Intramuros as a destination by next year, we will continue po focusing on the digital platform and then ensure din po that the proper health and safety protocols are in place when we do open already for domestic tourists po.
Perhaps we could also come up with a community-based livelihood given the situation, no? A community-based livelihood, and I would like to ask also for the support of our ever so masipag and super smart Secretary Berna to ask for her support with regards to maybe creating a community-based livelihood for tourism, like face masks making, so that they can make it locally designed and they can even show off the destination of where they're from. And it's also one way to support local. Yes. Maybe this is something we can think about and include also. And if, like what Kong Tof said, the Arts and Culture Block will be making a letter to ask for consideration on increasing the budget, I too enjoy in Kong Tof in this letter that we will submit. And I hope, Mr. Chair, Kong Jack Duabit, you help us as well. And the leadership. Okay po ba yun sa inyo, Sec?
Yes, Mr. Chair, yes. Of course, it's okay. And then we could actually look at the mask making also for the Cash for Work program. That could also be a possibility because that would be perfect because it is in line with COVID, and we want, of course, we always want to support local.
And then they can like for syempre may
Correct.
district kasi in Intramuros. Pwede silang maglagay ng Kalesa or pwede silang maglagay ng Fort Santiago or sa Boracay maglagay kayo ng beach, 'di ba?
Yes.
Kasi malaki naman yung space ng face mask eh. So there's so much that we can do to play around with it. Plus we give livelihood pa to the communities. So last is last two questions. One, any update on the maestranza? And two, what is Intramuros doing with the status of the informal settlers?
Mr. Chair, can I give it to, again, Administrator Guilher?
Regarding the Maestranza Creative Hub po, we are still pursuing it actively, although merong concerns regarding the a private claimant. But we're working with the Office of the Solicitor General to ensure po that this is addressed accordingly. But the plans have been prepared already. Unfortunately, we had to suspend it because of the current situation. But we are still in partnership with the Creative Economy Council of the Philippines and also Design Center to ensure that we complete the project.
And for the informal settlers?
Yes, Mr. Chair, regarding the informal settlers, andun pa rin po yung partnership with the Socialized Housing Finance Corporation. But what we are doing right now po is we have submitted a proposal to SHAPC for an on-site resettlement of the informal settlers. So excited po yung SHAPC because this will be the first time that we're adopting this approach of in situ. Binevet lang po in terms of the proposal to ensure that we address the informal settlers concern.
Okay. And Attorney G, I hope you don't forget also our never-ending plan for the tent. I think this will be beneficial, especially now in these times. So maybe that's something that we can take into consideration. And kung ano pang kailangan ng DOT, ng Intramuros Admin at ng National Parks para maipush ang budget ninyo, nandito kami para talagang gawin namin ng abot na makakaya. As in talagang ipupush talaga namin. At I'm sure yan din ang sentiment ng mga kasama ko sa Arts and Culture Block para lalong mapatibay ang ating department. Maraming salamat po at magandang hapon sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Kong Crystal.
Thank you.
We now recognize the Honorable DV, Deputy Speaker DV Savillano. Kong DV, on deck.
Sir Chair.
There you go. Okay. You're recognized, Deputy Speaker. Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. At simple lang po yung tanong ko. Because I'm really interested in farm tourism. And ang gusto ko, sana ma-implement na natin ito na mahusay because I think right now, ito yung pinakamadaling gawin. So, Madam Secretary, bigyan mo ako ng point person mo, nakakausapin ko, because I want a template. Gusto ko yung 296 barangays in my district. Gawin namin yung farm tourism na yan. Because now, ay yung mga taong ginagawa nila, naglilinis ng barangay, nagtatanim sa barangay. And ang farm tourism sa akin, wala naman tayong budget na malaking gagastusin dyan eh. Like, just putting up directional signs, ano yung process of making or yung cooking natin, yung crops, etc. Nandun na lahat yun. So, hindi ko kailangan yung malaking pondo.
Yes.
I just want yung doable things na yun ang gawin natin ngayon. Because if we're talking of infra, millions yan eh, magagawan pa tayo. Ano yung pwede natin gawin sa mga distrito natin and sa mga barangay na I think doable? I just want to somebody who who can support me with the training, because right now what I'm doing is sarili kong sikap na nagte-train ako sa mga about barangay tourism. So yun lang, Madam Secretary.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chair, I fully support your thrust for farm tourism. In fact po sa survey namin with regard to COVID, farm tourism po yung lumalabas na gustong puntahan ng mga turista ngayon. And we will give you a point person, pero yung initial meeting nyo kasama po ako kasi, you know, as you well know, nasa DA po ako 12 years. So that is actually my farm tourism is always close to my heart. So we will meet with you ASAP.
Yes, ma'am. I know kasi dati ka na sa agri, so pinag-combine mo lang agri and tourism. So ito yung pinaka-doable, and I know that this is close to your heart.
Yes.
So, Madam Secretary, and additional lang, since we are preparing for the opening of, we don't know, 18 months or what, yung sa distrito kasi, in my district, di ba dumaong na dun yung cruise ship. So, yun lang pagpapatulungan ko, yung ano yung gagawin natin mga developments, because yung experience namin, 4,000 of tourists goes down to my district to go around. So, ang isang kailangan lang namin hall lang, yung holding area nila, na maayos natin sana para alam mo naman, ang turista kailangan nilang silang malamig na lugar, maganda yung lugar. So, yun lang ang pagpapatulungan, and a world-class restroom. To this request is para sana natin, para we can prepare, because who knows, January, February, open na naman mga cruise, so ready na tayo.
Yes. Okay.
So yun lang, Madam Secretary, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, DS Kabsat. We now go to Representative Rufus Rodriguez. Kong Rufus.
Thank you. Thank you very much, our hardworking Chairman Jack Duavit. Maayong hapon sa tanan. And firstly, may I congratulate the Honorable Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat for her outstanding performance as the implementer of the mandate of the Department of Tourism. And I would also like to acknowledge at this point the good work and exemplary performance of Regional Director May Salvania Unchuan of Region 10. Not only does she implement the projects of the DOT, but because she is a very active member of the task force on COVID-19, had helped already thousands of returning ROFs and LSIs to Region 10 and Cagayan de Oro. So congratulations and thank you to Ardemay Unchuan. Madam Secretary, Bayanihan 2 has given 3 billion for cash for work, 1 billion for tourism road infra, 6 billion to SB Corporation. I would like to make an appeal on behalf of the City of Golden Friendship, Cagayan de Oro. And first, we have, based on NEDA figures, because I sit in the Regional Advisory Council of the NEDA, Region 10 Advisory Council, we have a total of 11,000 displaced workers in the tourism industry. Included in this number are the 35 accredited tour guides of Cagayan de Oro, the whitewater rafting, 80 persons employed in our whitewater rafting in the Cagayan de Oro River, one of the last Class A rivers of our country. And our whitewater rafting is our #1 tourist attraction. And you have been to Costa Rica, the Pacuari River of Costa Rica, the Brisbane River of Australia. And our whitewater rafting compares to the best, in fact, the best in the world, as far as I saw it. And that is why so many would go there and would be able to have that. But now it's closed, rightly so, because of COVID-19. And there are 80 of them who are out of work. So I would like to request that they be considered for the 3 billion cash for work. So that's the first one. Second, the 6 billion SB Corporation, I'm very glad that through our secretary, we have a zero interest for MSMEs, 1 year grace period, 3 years to pay, no collateral, video lang kailangan. Yan ang maganda. So now, let me just inform you that from the NEDA figures, we have a total of 81 establishments in Cagayan de Oro City. So this will be bigger for the region, but I'm talking of my city. So 81 establishments. So if they could be able to be, we will get all the rules, and we will be able to submit to the Honorable Secretary. And the third one, this will be also be answerable by the tourism, the TIESA. 1 billion was given for the Bayanihan 2. And we are asking first that our 10 million only request has been pending for 7 short years. 7 years. Up to now, there have been 4 violations. I have signed all the contracts. Up to now, FS Catanico Falls, one also of our attraction, no, nothing yet, not even one post from the TIESA. So can we ask TIESA to consider already implementing it? Now that has been a budget for last year, and this should be done already. And of course, also for TIESA, if for the 1 billion, medyo may konti naman kami sa Bisaya pa jutay bahin, which is to have the road to Guadalupe Shrine in Balubal, where thousands would go at the Feast of the Lady of Guadalupe. So therefore, may I ask the response of our dear Secretary for the displaced workers and the MSMEs, and then also from the TIESA representative. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, definitely for number 1, we will get the list of the names from RD May Unchuan, because that's what we've been doing. We've been asking our RDs to consolidate, and we agreed because we have to help the displaced workers. Number 2, with regard to SB Corp, we will be also coordinating closely with you, because that's why we are grateful to SB Corp that mas madaling maka-access, and we will be facilitating that. Number 3, may I give the floor to Cholo Paragas.
Thank you, Madam Sec. Mr. Chair, regarding the 1 billion, that is actually under the DPWH. It is not under TIESA for the Bayanihan 2. And then for the specific, the parochial concern, the project in that area, as stated, was for 7 years. Engineer Ness will be explaining a few of the details to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon po, Mr. Chair, members of the House of Representatives. With regards to the development of FS Catanico Spring Resort Project in Cagayan de Oro, Mr. Chair, actually it was awarded po. Nabid po yun, na-award sa contractor. Ang naging problema lang po nung i-implement na, hindi po siya kaagad nabigyan ng ECC, Environmental Certificate Compliance. So, nag-request po ng yung contractor na terminate na lang namin. Mutually terminate kasi hindi na po realistic yung mga costing. So, we need to revise the plans and the program of work to continue with the implementation. Kaya lang po nag-COVID na po, kaya na-suspend na rin po. Yun po, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you to Secretary Berna, and thank you to Mr. Paragas and the TIESA for that explanation. I go to my last manifestation, Mr. Chairman. The budget, Mr. Chairman, of the Department of Tourism, as submitted to the DBM, was 4.996 billion. How much did DBM give to the DOT? Only 3.841 billion. In other words, Mr. Chairman, 1.158 billion was lost from the DOT. Mr. Chairman, if there is an industry now to focus and a sector, it should be tourism because not only are we inviting international tourists as we go to 2021, where we hope there will be a vaccine or sometime later, we will have to have this DOT well prepared to be able to meet our foreigners, our foreign visitors, plus the good advocacy of Secretary Berna for domestic tourism. Let's all go out and go to to the different beautiful places in the Philippines. Now, 12.7% is the GDP contribution, but less than 1% is given, very small. Only a decimal points are given to the DOT. Mr. Chairman, with you as our spokesman, as the leader for the charge to increase the budget in the plenary, we should be able, with the Honorable Jack David, hardworking, will always be always persuasive to everybody who will be able to persuade the DBM and the Committee of Appropriation to be able to at least give back the 1.58 billion, because it is not an industry that will just be spending. No, there is a multiplier effect when we have our budget for tourism and we are geared towards the return of the domestic and foreign visitors. May we know from Secretary Berna, because Secretary Berna is just really a good follower of the executive. She really is very prudent. She would not want to really fight out because there's probably an instruction, Mr. Chairman, instruction to the cabinet members not to question anymore. But this is coming, the initiative is coming from members of Congress. The executive cannot really impose on Congress because you have the power of the purse in accordance to Article 7 of the Constitution. So I'd like to ask Secretary Berna, is she amenable for us to work, even if she will not violate what the executive are instructing all cabinet members not to ask for augmentation? No, it is the Congress, Mr. Chairman, asking for augmentation. So maybe from Secretary Berna whether she would agree to us to concur to get 1.158, just restore the budget requested by the industry, the tourism sector, the Department of Tourism, to be able to go on with our establishments, the employment, and all the benefits to all localities. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, of course, we welcome and we would thank you for all the support you are giving to the DOT.
Now, with that, Mr. Chairman, that is good enough. Her thank you and her acceptance that we're going to fight for her and the department, it will be fine for me. And with that, again, daghang salamat sa tanan, especially Secretary Berna, Rio Director Onjuan, and Mr. Paragas of TIESA. We hope that the first post will be constructed already in the FS Catanico Falls. Daghang salamat ug may hapon kanaton tanan.
Thank you very much, Kong Rufus, for all of the kind words and for all of the support. Madam Secretary, as you know that we are being streamed on Facebook Live. Currently, we are being viewed by some 600,000 people. And in the initiative of the Speaker of the House, Aaron Peter Cayetano, perhaps just a little bit of people participation. Would it be all right with you to answer just a few questions we've selected from the Facebook Live viewers?
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Would the Honorable Teddy Garesco be kind enough to read out some of these questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Coming from our Facebook followers of the House of Representatives, tanong para sa DOT from Eureka Tanyos on the live feed comments. Ano ang kalagayan ng ilipad, institutionalized leveraging of infrastructure program for airport development na sa programa ng DOT at DOTR?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chair, we were supposed to help the DOTR with regard to night rating of the airports. We were going to allot, I think, about 2 billion, but unfortunately, because of COVID, 12 billion was removed. Kasama po doon yung ilipad.
Second question from Elena Roxanne Achevida. Nagkaroon ng mga plano ang gayahin ang paglinis sa Boracay at sa iba pang tourist destination. May plano ba ang DOT na ayusin na rin ang ibang destinasyon habang wala pa masyadong turista dahil sa pandemya?
Yes, Mr. Chair, patuloy po yung aming promotion ng sustainable tourism together with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and DILG. Lalo na po ngayon habang wala pang turista, we are working with the different LGUs and to make sure that everything is environmentally compliant. Similar to Boracay.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. From Patrick Rivera, nag-announce ang DOT ng mga plano tungkol sa paggawa ng travel bubbles and travel corridors. Paano ito gagawin? May pag-aaral ba ginawa para malaman kung ano ang pinakamagandang market ng turista?
Ang travel bubble po or travel corridor ay binase po natin sa mga ginagawa ng mga ibang bansa with low cases or no COVID cases. So nagsimula po ito, nag-usap ang between Australia and New Zealand kung pwede magka-travel bubble o travel corridor. Ang swerte po naman ng Pilipinas, we have 7,641 islands and 12 airports. So right now, we are talking, at saka swerte po tayo like Panglao, Boracay, and El Nido have zero COVID. So yun po ay pinag-aaralan, but we have to talk to the different local government units. Una, ang gusto po nila ay muna paunti-unti to open up to domestic tourism. So once okay po, we have to assure na magkaka-dry run, of safety protocols are being met, and then we can open it up to, but of course with the concurrence of the residents, the locals, and the local government, we can open up travel bubbles between, let's say, Boracay and another country na halos walang COVID or low prevalence ng COVID.
Pang-apat po kay Kiko Samonte. Ano ang mga impluwensya sa DOT ng pribadong korporasyon na Tourism Congress of the Philippines para diktahan ang gobyerno na ipagliban ang infrastruktura ng mga proyekto para sa tourist destination ng bansa? Pasensya na po, Bisaya ako, hindi ko maintindihan to. Na walang hanap buhay ngayon, panahon ng COVID.
Okay po. I'm not sure po nandito po si Congressman Chato. He was one of the authors of the Tourism Act of 2009. The Tourism Congress of the Philippines was mandated by the Tourism Act of 2009 or RA 9593 to create a broad-based cross-sectoral organization to represent the tourism industry and work as a partner with the Department of Tourism in making and the implementation of policies, plans, and programs. Nasa batas po yan, kaya sumusunod lang po kami sa batas.
Galing pa rin po kay Mr. Samonte, hindi ba ang ibang empleyado ng malalaking korporasyon gaya ng kasapi ng TCP ay natulungan na mismo ng tupad program ng DOLE at iba pang programa ng DOF, DTI at SSS?
Opo, ang sa tupad program po, yun po ay mga unemployed or displaced workers. Ang nabigyan lang po ng pondo doon about 13,000 as I recall. Yun po sa wage subsidy program, I have to say that 5.7 million po ang employed noong 2019. Yung sa DOF wage subsidy program, ang nabigyan lang po ay about 600,000. Ang maganda po dito po sa Bayanihan, and we would like to thank the BICAM, yung 6 billion po ay mapupunta sa MSMEs. 99% po of the accommodation sector are with the MSMEs. So yun po ang matutulungan.
Mr. Chairman, isa na lang, hindi ko na babasahin ang ibang sinasabi ni Mr. Samonte kasi medyo malalim na ito. Bakit inuuna ng DOT ang pribadong interes ng TCP at hindi binibigyan ng prioridad ang tunay na pagdidevelop ng ating tourist destination na makatulong sa mas maraming tao at maaangat pa sa performance ng industriya.
Opo. Ito po ay nanggaling po, yung Arise Bill, nanggaling po rin sa Kongreso. I recall that the chair of the Economic Affairs and all the committee members nakipagpulong po sa ating mga stakeholders at dahil po sa pandemic, yun po ang inuna nila. And I believe the Senate version was also based on the Arise Bill coming from the House.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Po ang babasahin natin mula po sa mga People's Initiative galing sa Facebook at saka YouTube ng House of Representatives.
Sanay po ako mag-chair, pero para akong nagpakiramdam ko, parang talk show host ngayon, Ate Josie. With that, may we recognize the Honorable Vice Chairman, Josie Lim Kaichong.
Thank you very much, Chairman Jack. And it's nice to see you once again after the long COVID quarantine period. And salamat din to our Secretary Puyat, for allowing us to say a few words about regional concern. It has to do with the Regional Tourism Master Plan of Central Visayas and Comprehensive Tourism Development Plan for the Island Province of Siquijor. It was bidded out last February 2020 but was not awarded. So hindi naman kasalanan ng departamento simply because it was not awarded, maybe because we were overtaken by all this COVID pandemic. But see, Central Visayas is among the fastest growing region in the past decade. And in 2019, for those who are in live streaming, Central Visayas covers the entire Central Visayas Region 7, comprising of 4 provinces, Bohol, Cebu, Negros Oriental, and Siquijor. So in 2019, the region was visited by 9.4 million tourists, both foreign and local. It had an impressive 16.36% increase over 2018 level. And the number of visitors generated an estimated 149.75 billion pesos, contributing to the regional economy. So our Region 7, very dynamic Region 7 Director, Shalimar Tamano, and his team initiated with coming up with this Central Visayas Regional Tourism Master Plan. And this is to localize the National Tourism Development Plan in 3 phases: the short, medium, and long plan. So this master plan shall be the framework to achieve a holistic and sustainable tourism development in the region. So a total allocation was bidded out for the preparation for the Regional Tourism Master Plan. Kaya nga, it was, I guess, realigned due to this COVID pandemic. Kaya nawala siya, it was not awarded. So sa akin lang, hopefully, the department will reconsider including this in the 2021 budget, simply because it's timely that we need a real development plan. Hindi yung patansya-tansya na lang. So at this point, yun lang naman ang natin na ma-recorded at saka ma-reminded din yung department that Central Visayas is very vital in the tourism growth of our nation. So yun lang naman po.
Yes. Mr. Chair, yung central planning po ng Visayas for Siquijor, it's still ongoing po under NEDA. Kasama po siya. Unfortunately po, yung for the whole Central Visayas, ang TIEZA ang in charge. And nakunan po ng budget for Bayanihan 1. But yung Siquijor po, kasama pa rin po.
Thank you for that clarification, Secretary. So Tieza, nandito ba yung Tieza? Okay. Sana mabigyan yun rin ng priority yung Central Visayas, the entire Region 7.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Josie. With regards, it's just my own view before we close. We're really faced where we're really going to lose a lot of income, no? Especially with regards to the travel tax. And if it is as it is expected that it will reach 2024, perhaps it is time to start now, way in advance, for 2022. To identify what essential activities and essential programs that were being funded by the travel tax to be part of the General Appropriations Act in the interim until it recovers. So with that,
Chairman,
yes.
Chairman, I'm sorry.
Hello.
Can TSA not? Can TSA not?
You recognize the
TSA
Honorable Sharon Garin.
just quick lang? I'm just wondering with your comment. Can TSA not do their own get loans or do PPPs? So since we're not expecting any collections anyway for the next 2 years, diba, are they not authorized?
Could you clarify your charter, COO?
If I can comment, that's why during that time that we were deliberating with the Department of Finance pertaining to the funding that they were supposed to be getting from TIESA and DOT in general, the amount that they wanted to get was actually bigger than the 12 billion. So that's why what we did was in defense of that, we looked into our amounts to make sure that we will be able to proceed with our ongoing projects and our operations until 2021. Exactly with the same comment that you had, Mr. Chair, that we totally agree that we really wanted to have a leeway for us to study with your officer pertaining to the GAA for 2022. And in addition to that, hoping that, let's say, the recognition pertaining to, we totally understand the master planning requirement that Central Visayas has. And
Chair,
yes.
Kong Sharon.
The question is, does your charter allow you to get loans or do PPPs? Because you won't have any funding for the next few years.
That's part of, Mr. Chair, ma'am.
Are you authorized under your charter, sir?
I think that's something that we're trying to visit because we have two, which is the PTA and the TIESA mandate of 2009. So right now, sir, since this is a new case to us, we wanted to study the options. Even that one yung sa loans po.
My understanding, Kong Sharon, is they have corporate powers. However, to be able to apply for it, they will need clearance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understanding.
But that should be a good loan because it will be guaranteed by government revenues naman diba? So anyway, I just think we should be more proactive rather than just wait how much we're for the next 2 years.
Perhaps we can work together with the Committee on Economic Affairs and the Committee on Tourism, especially with regards to this. Also in the Committee on Higher Education, as they are also affected by the travel tax. And of course, our mother committee on the other side, Kong Shah, we are the Committee on Ways and Means. So siguro mag-usap na lang tayo ni na Kong Joey tungkol dyan.
Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, considering that there are no more members of the House who wish to interpolate, I move that we terminate this briefing.
I second the motion, Mr. Chair.
There being no objections, the motion is carried. The hearing is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Terminated.